Okay, I think we have all here who we're expecting, because Joyce is not able to attend today, thank you. So, why don't we call the meeting to order? 9:04. Start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Let's start off with approval of the agenda. Okay, we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Is there support?
I will support.
Motion and support. Any discussion, changes? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Then we can go on to approval of the minutes from the March 26th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I so move.
Support.
We have a motion support to approve the minutes. Any corrections or discussion? I just want to say, since I wasn't here, looks like a lot of stuff was discussed, and I'm sad I wasn't. It looks like some good discussions there were there. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried and is approved. Public comment. Seeing no public. Correspondence. Do you have anything? Deborah, there were a couple things in.
I put a few in the, I went and talked about the library, at another PEO chapter ladies group.
Oh, this was different from the one that was.
This was a
Yeah,
different
it's last
one.
month, so it's the
Right,
other.
this
There-
was the other one,
there are
yes,
two
there's
PEO
two of them.
groups.
Yep, so I've done both of them now. And there was an email from Roy, I hope you all read it.
I did.
Because we had let him go. And then I wanted to share, so I thought the best way to share the seed library was to share the email that Layla and Kim are overseeing the seed library. All across the country, libraries are starting seed libraries, and so we're on that path. So that's it.
Okay. Financials, that brings us to you, Dave.
So you have the financials. Starting next month, they will go out in your packet. And I believe the packet goes out on Thursday before the meeting. Is that correct? Okay.
Helen does the packet go out Thursday. Oh, you just.
That would be great.
That's
Thank
nice.
you, Dave. That would be wonderful, yeah.
And it's nice to know when they go out, so I know whether or not I'm gonna get it. I mean, it's bad when your neighbors bring you your mail.
Oh.
So if we move into the balance sheet, which is page 1, you can see the cash positions, what's in the Summer Johnson, what's in press, the checking account, and then the county treasurer account. Under the other assets, we have requested, there was some money that was owed for payment in lieu of taxes receivable, the delinquent personal property, and you did have a small amount due to the county for reassessments that were done, board of review. We requested them to send us the net of that so that we could get that cleared up. We did that yesterday, so you should be receiving a check, you know, within this, either the end of this month or the first of next month, that will be for those, the net of those 3 items. So you'll be receiving a small check to look for. Then the penal fines receivable at the end of the month is roughly $13,000. The property tax receivable is actually made up of 2 things. Just so you know, I didn't create a separate account. The it's made up of current property taxes of roughly $207,000 and personal property tax reimbursement of $39,609. I made a call into the county treasurer yesterday. He was not in, because that is under your budget, and I was wondering if that was just the first payment or what was going on with that. He hadn't called me back yet this morning, so I will follow up with that and then give Deb an email. And there is also another item that Deb and I have been talking about, whether the DDAs can capture your millage anymore, and I was going to discuss that with them, just to get that moving forward, to make sure we don't get 2 years down the road. I think Deb and I both feel that the current millage is not something that should be captured, and it's just getting it straightened out at that level, at the level, and making sure that they're not. So you have 2 DDA districts in the county.
I was gonna raise that in, we're all thinking those same things, so, yep.
Yeah, so.
So tell me, I don't understand, so the new millage you're thinking may not,
It's not
new?
subject to capture.
It's
There
not
was a-
subject to capture.
There was a law that was passed in January 2017 because of all the DDAs in the state capturing so much money from the library. So it was a big push by the library world. And so this went into effect in 2017. It's just how you interpret it. So we believe once our millage had passed last year, starting with 2018 millage, that the DDA should not be capturing that amount of money, and it's like $18,000. So we're looking into it.
$18,000 for both DDAs?
Combined.
Combined.
And with my DDA hat on, our DDA understanding is that libraries need to opt out, that there's active step needed, it's not opt out.
So yeah,
It's just
yeah.
sorting through.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes to get that to happen, we'll make it happen. The accounts payable, as you can see, is roughly almost 22,000, pretty much in line with what is the new norm. Accounts payable to the county, again, is for payroll, so that's pretty normal there also. Any questions on the balance sheet? If we move on to the statement of revenue expenditures previous year comparison, which is just for the current month, you can see that the penal fines for the current month are down a little bit. And the revenue itself is up total compared to the year before, or the month before last year. Looking at the other items, there are some differences. I mean, some major differences. If you're looking on page 3, partway down under buildings and grounds, item 93003, snow removal, 3205, compared to 570. Obviously, we knew that snow removal was going to be a lot higher this year than it had been in the previous year. Because last year was just the opposite. We got all the snow early and then nothing late. This year we got it after the first of the year. So knew that was going to happen. So if you move to page 4, you can see what the current month income is compared to last year. This year was 198, last year was 193. So overall, there was a positive change comparing this month to the previous month a year ago. If we move to page 5, it's the statement of revenues, expenditures, previous year actual. You can see that current year penal fines are 78.5. Last year they were 71.7. So we do have an increase in overall penal fines through the first 6 months, and we are 6 months through the fiscal year, so we're looking for items that we want them to be, we'll get into the budget here in a minute, are at least 50% of the budget for the revenue, and on the expenditure side are 50% or below. So total overall revenue though is down for the first 6 months of the year. It was 1,197 compared to 1,242. The biggest part of that decrease, I mean, is all in personal property tax revenue. If you look at that under income tax, 406.00, you'll see that this year, this month it was 39,609.37, and last year was 94,599. So that's where the decrease is, just in that one line item. And looking at the expenditures, this year and last year, for the 6 months. On page 6, salaries are down roughly 10% through the first 6 months. Subscriptions are down. Of course, those are not equal through the year, so I would expect that to be a little bit different, and there has been some change in that area. Programs are down. Books are actually up. There again, that was not ordered equally through the year. The total collection expense is actually down, roughly 7%, 70,000 compared to 76 the year before. Capital outlay is up compared to the year before. That's dealing with the ILS support. That's just a timing issue. And of course, capital outlay is up a little bit. Moving to page 7, fees and services are actually down, but that part of that is due to the timing of the payment of the bills to the county. So I would expect that to be even more out this coming year, or this coming month. Buildings and grounds is pretty much in line with the prior year. Branch expenses up a little bit. Under supplies are up quite a bit. A lot of that's in furniture and furniture and equipment. Over the prior year, that's under supplies, 907.01. Then vehicle maintenance is up quite a bit from the prior year. But that's going to happen. The vehicle is aging. So that
We get new tires.
That's a good thing.
that's a safety issue.
Yeah.
So, and then there has been the transfer out to the capital improvement fund. So the income is 672 this year compared to 520 or 725 last year. There again, the main difference is the difference in the reimbursement for the personal property tax.
And as you said earlier, you've got a call into
I got a
the
call
county
in.
treasurer to
Yes.
try to understand that difference at this point.
Yes.
I know he told me that it was gonna be lower, but I don't understand why. So I'm gonna do some more research myself, because they had said that it was just gonna keep going up, and to be down that much, just, yeah, it doesn't seem right.
As we get into this part, you'll see that we had $60,000 budgeted. So we didn't budget the full 90-some thousand from the
Right.
year before. So, but still, that's $21,000 under budget. So that's a big thing to make up someplace else. So starting on page 9, we have the statement of revenue expense budget versus actual for this year. Here again, on the revenue side, we wanted it to be a percent of the budget, at least 50% or more, to be on the good side, and on the expenditure side, it's 50% or less, because we're halfway through the year. So you can see the penal fines were at actually roughly 63% of budget. Fees are under, interest income is under, other income is above what was budgeted. Sales are under, service fees are a little bit above. State funds, the state aid to libraries, we haven't received anything yet. So that'll be coming in. And then property taxes are at 89.2. Here again, not sure why. As you can see, one of them is the personal property tax reimbursement we just talked about. It's roughly $20,000 less. Payment in lieu is over. Current year property taxes, hopefully that's what the delinquent amount's gonna be. I haven't talked to him yet to see if they've settled everything out, because they're supposed to settle out at the end of March. Everything's supposed to be turned over to the courthouse. So I don't know if he's got everything settled out with all the townships and the city and stuff. So that I'll find out also when I do talk to him. So we're looking at now the expenditure side. So we want 50% or less. Personnel right now is at 36.7, so that's well under. But that should even out here. Moving to the next item, under collection expenses, subscriptions are at 42%, programs are at 16%. A lot of your programs happen in the juvenile area during the summertime, so that will catch up. Books are at 40%, AV material at 57.5%. There again, that's not ordered equally through the year, so to be over 50% is not a red flag type issue, I guess I'd say. Capital expenditures, same way. Capital outlay is under budget. There again, that's something that will catch up. If we move to page 11, fees and services are 29%. Buildings and grounds are 56.8. But then again, that has the elevator contract in it, which is a one-time expenditure. So to only be at 56.8% is not alarming or a bad item. Branch expenditures are at 44.8, within the realm it should be. Miscellaneous, 1.9. Supplies, at 30%, roughly 31. Utilities at 39. Vehicle overall is at 51, so even though we had the big variance for the current month, overall it's within budget or close to. Transfers out. Got that going on, something to do. Usually we'll do those 2 transfers in the, after we get the property tax revenue settled, usually is when we do that. So that'll be upcoming. So yes, excess of 672 right now. Moving on to the balance sheet for the capital improvement fund, you see you've got roughly $323,000 in there, and it's assigned and unassigned for various projects. The current month on the next page, page 14, is the interest income. And then the following page is the year-to-date, which shows a transfer in of the $10,499.97 and the total interest income and the income for the year-to-date. Is there any questions, concerns?
Didn't we, why is there Bear Lake branch improvements, why is that still showing 14,000? Remember we had that expense for those new doors out there?
What page are you looking at, I'm sorry?
13.
13.
When did we do the doors? Like the
I was just trying to
fall or
think of
something?
when
Was it,
we-
I'm wondering,
We can look it up, but I want to see it was in last year's budget.
oh, okay.
But
I
I
may have
may
just
was
taken
it
it.
after October?
But regardless, I don't think it ever got.
Came
Right,
out
it
of
didn't-
town.
it didn't come out of here.
Which
Yeah,
is wrong.
I don't.
So I don't know where it came out of.
It probably, if I didn't make the connection between here and it was supposed to be transferred over, then it never got transferred over and it came out of your general budget.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, if you could identify that amount for me and when it took place, we'll make the transfer in out of the capital improvement fund because that is designated for the Bear Lake, and then reimburse the general fund.
Okay.
I don't, I have no memory of the doors in Bear Lake.
I know we talked about it, so we'll find out when.
I remember discussion about it, but I don't remember an amount.
Oh, okay. So Dave, the assignment for, sign for miscellaneous projects,
Yeah.
has that number been moving? And,
The unassigned,
line 310.25.
that was the last time it was actually done, in a meeting that I can remember, and we had assigned it for the roof. I mean, we have more coming in this year that has a specific designation, but when the 270,000 was transferred in last year, it was just assigned for future projects. It was never specifically identified for any project.
Right.
That's why it's in the unassigned. The other ones were previous. I mean, the van was, and
Oh, right.
there's something in the budget. The miscellaneous one was
Whatever.
whatever was left over after assigning the other ones.
Okay.
Same way with the roof, I mean, so. But there are two transfers that are supposed to happen, what, 10 and 5?
10 and 6.
10 and 6, that are designed for, or designated for specific projects.
Great.
I mean, I don't know where you're at in looking up at your upcoming projects, and if you want to assign some of that 270, instead of just labeling it out there, that's totally up to you. From an outside party looking in, it's better to have it assigned.
And we've talked about
Yeah,
that. We've
yeah.
talked about that a number of times. Is that something that we talk about at committees or as a full board? I'm just wondering, how do we make that kind of decision?
Well, I think there are a couple things related to it, is because during the budgeting process, we budgeted this year, I don't know, $40,000 for capital improvement projects. So we've been kind of doing it through the budgeting process, not through the capital improvement fund.
Okay.
So I guess just from a process perspective, when is one appropriate versus the other, and how, I guess if the operating funds or the annual funds are there to do the projects, then that's where they should be done. It's when they go above and beyond that the budget probably would reflect a transfer in from capital improvements to cover a certain larger expense. Is that how it would be done?
That's the way you're currently being done. When you have an item in here that's designated for a specific purpose, then the money should come out of designated funds first instead of general operating. So, like the doors, for instance, in Bear Lake. The general pecking order is you use designated funds first, or assigned funds, and then unassigned funds, or your general operating budget. But as you're 100% correct, and when you do your budget, which includes capital improvements, you usually do to see if there is enough in the general operating, then use your reserve or your capital improvement fund. But the general theory behind the capital improvement fund is you're saving for a major project, not just an ordinary replacing a door. Okay. Or replacing a computer, unless you're going to replace the whole computer system. Then that would be that way. So, I mean, and if you don't know, that's fine. I mean, you can easily start rattling off 4 or 5 projects that need to be done that would eat that money up in no time at all. But, I mean, just because you assign it to a project now doesn't mean it's pigeonholed there for the rest of its life.
Okay.
You can reassign it to other areas.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
I mean, it's a board assigned fund.
Okay.
it did, and then, you know, of course, it generated.
I know, it's generating more questions too, yes.
How do we work through those questions and issues? I don't know if this is the time to bring it all up, but,
Well, I think there are two avenues. One is through the budgeting process. We
Right.
often talk about not only the day-to-day stuff, but we also start then talking about larger, longer-term things.
right,
But then we also have the facilities committee who's tasked with, you know, thinking through some of this. So it's kind of those two
Yes.
avenues
yeah,
that are, you know, the board kind of has processes in place to come
right.
back to the full board with recommendations.
I'm sorry, remind me again when our budget, our calendar year is it April?
September.
September, or September.
September, or October
So
first.
October one,
everybody
I think
is
so.
different. so
Yeah.
I just
October
can't
first
keep
through
this right sometimes.
September 30th.
October through September, okay.
But I think what I read somewhere is the first draft budget we'll probably see that next month,
Yep.
so.
So ideally then, since we want our committees to be thinking about this stuff and making recommendations, this month the appropriate committee should be talking about this.
And I believe
That's
We set up
building-
they are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Finance, we set up a meeting.
And so finance, we would be talking about that
The
as well?
the budget.
The budget,
So,
okay.
yeah,
And we
the
did
budget.
set up for
Yeah,
that,
yep,
yes.
so, yeah.
All
And I
right,
guess-
excellent.
And maybe we're kind of jumping ahead to committee reports, but I do believe the facilities committee met, there are recommendations on here. Is the facilities committee thinking about other capital projects?
I don't think we were there
Haven't
yet.
gotten-
Not this year, but last year when I was on the facilities committee, that's where we asked that capital improvements for the van and for the roof be
You
put in
started
there.
to.
So we started that process last year.
We've been doing that a few more years, that goes
Right.
back a little longer.
That's nice.
Well,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we also referenced making sure that, because we knew that the van was aging and the roof will be needing.
Mhm.
And we talked last year about those bigger projects, the
We did.
painting,
The
the carpet,
The
the
tech
shelving.
room, the teen
That's
room.
Well, we
you know,
talked about all
we
of
did
that and then getting it,
Well, we haven't committed to an
That's
amount.
right.
Like that, so you can't,
that's what we
you
kind
can't
of,
really,
You can't,
assign it
yeah.
unless you really have some of
I
your
know.
decision made that.
all the ducks
this is
lined
right,
up,
and if you,
yeah.
know,
We're not
from-
quite there yet.
Yeah.
Right,
We-
but
Okay.
we
We're
at
getting
least
there.
are
We're getting
putting
there.
money into those projects.
Yeah, that's, okay, great.
Okay.
I guess I had just one more comment. When you talk about the capital improvement budget, in an ideal situation, you'd have a capital outlay budget separate from your general budget that'll expand at least 5 years, what you plan on doing over the next 5 years. I think that would be the ultimate goal, is to get that in place so that you know what's coming down the road. So when we get into the position like you were last year, when there were excess funds, you can say, yeah, we're really gonna need this money in year 3, we better put it away and not do our little project we would like to do and eat some of it up. I mean, so, you know, as we talk about the roof, do we really know, I mean, we really never know when. I mean, you could project out that probably in year 3, we should do it before we start having water leak through the roof and then damage inside and having repair.
Okay, that's really good to know okay, that's great, because that links to our strategic planning too, that when we talk about our projects, to be linking that up to the budget and so make all those connections in a 5-year timeframe. Thanks, David. I do have one little question, for Deborah, and I don't know if this is micromanaging, so please, I apologize. But under subscriptions,
Can you tell me what page?
oh, I'm so sorry, page 10. So, you know, it's 42%, so we're not really, the whole overall category is 42%, so we're not worried about it. But when you look within it, you know, we've got expenditures, you know, for various items. And I'm just wondering your strategy, you're keeping a close eye on that to know, I mean, is your strategy to be spending some monies more, getting more collections, or I'm sorry, subscriptions than other ones? this year, and so the numbers are gonna look a little wonky like that for some 180,
well-
116.
I don't know what you're looking at, maybe like Hoopla. Hoopla is one that is, that's patron driven, so it's by use. So the more use that there is, the more we pay. Does that kind of help?
Well, I was like looking at like branch magazines, subscriptions,
one of
online and.
One of my
Manistee.
employees takes care of that, and so I know from the year that I got here to this budget here that, I plan, the magazine subscriptions have come down,
Oh, okay.
because of, the usage. We looked at that, what is it that people aren't using? So
Sure.
the staff did go through that, because they know better than I do.
Sure.
And so they said, these aren't being read out here, some branches have more magazines than other branches. It's just what your patrons want.
Sure.
So that's basically, the staff kind of oversee that piece of it. And then, like I said, the Hoopla is very much patron driven. The one that I really question is, and I see it, we haven't paid for it yet, is the online news bank, because I know that is a service that is free through Mel. So I'm kind of iffy about that one at this point, so I've been kind of talking to Pam about it, but
Okay.
does that
okay.
help?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good to know your,
And I
some of
also
these
think
things
that,
are changing maybe
Yeah.
over time.
and I also think that because you mentioned ancestry, I believe that's a once a year annual
That's- yeah.
payment.
Oh,
So that's
that
just a
elevates it,
timing
yeah.
issue on
Yeah.
why that comes
Yeah,
through
that is,
that way.
yeah.
So it just kind of depends on some of the specifics.
Well, the thing that, at a higher level of thinking or overview, it's really nice to know that we're keeping track of what patrons' likes and dislikes are,
Mhm.
and that you're making adjustments, and even though the numbers maybe start looking a little wonky or payment schedules are a little off, I like the fact that we're being responsive to what our patrons want.
Yeah,
So, thank you for that.
One of the big ones is like some of our newspaper subscriptions, so Kim will come to me and she says, hey, we just got the bill for this, do you wanna keep it? And I said, are people reading it?
Right,
Yes, okay, so let's continue it.
right,
And then there might be one that she says, no, there's not really, I said, okay, let's cut it then.
right.
So just kind of getting their feedback of what they see people using.
And of course, when we budget, we don't know what the increase is gonna be on an annual subscription, so you
Oh.
can't, so we've put in for last year's amount, and then it comes in higher,
Sure.
but we're taking it, we do have a need for it, so I can see how some of those would be a little over.
Would be different,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Anything else for Dave?
Thank you.
Audit.
You're gonna review the audit?
I need a copy of it.
Oh,
Did you get yours for second? Did you get
Yeah.
yours in the mail?
I actually have those.
I know.
We sent it to you so you could read it.
And I did. No, I don't.
No,
Thank you, Helen. I was just wondering if you got it.
No, I did, I
Because
did,
I
I
had
did.
Helen send it to you.
So if we turn into the third page in, you'll see at the top it says Independent Auditors Report. And basically, this report is broken down into 4 or 5 sections, 5. The first section is that Gabe Region Company has audited the accompanying financial statements on the government activities in each major fund, and the aggregate remaining funds of Manistee County Library, a component unit of Manistee County as of and for the year ending September 30th, 2018. And the related notes to the financial statements are attached. The second paragraph is what is management's responsibility regarding the financial statements. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, and to design, implement, and maintain internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements that are free from material misstatement, other due to fraud or error. I mean, so in like one of the internal controls you have is a bill come in, a voucher's made out, then Deb signs it and say, yeah, it's okay, and it should be assigned to this account, and then it's paid. Well, that's the control over the process. And then when the checks come back, then the checks are signed, and the vouchers are attached to it, and so that the person signing the check can then review the bills. So that's one of the controls. That's one of your major controls, really. The auditor's responsibilities, they're responsible for expressing an opinion on the financial statements itself. An audit involves performing procedures to obtain the audit evidence about the amounts and disclosures in the financial statement. The procedures that each auditor uses is different. Well, the procedures I may use if I were auditing the library compared to what Cambridge and Company uses could be totally different. It just depends on their thought process and their risk level that they want to take with different things. In making those risk assessments, the auditor considers internal control relevant to the entity's preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. So they look at everything as a whole. And then the last paragraph on the first page, we believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our audit opinion. And the opinions, and that's the major paragraph right there. That's what you really want to focus on, is what it says in the opinion paragraph. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, each major fund, and aggregate and remaining fund information of the library as of September 30th, and the respective changes in financial position thereof for the year that ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. Now, when in your general fund, okay, is considered a governmental activity. So that's why they use governmental activity. Each other major fund is, the only other fund you have is the capital improvement fund. So that's what they're referring to in each major fund. Then the aggregate is the combined, just so we're clear. Because it's sort of, when you break it down to these smaller units like this and that wording gets in there, you're thinking, well, we've only got 2 funds. But when this wording is applied against all governmental types, which like the county has, I don't know, they may have 30, 40 funds, I don't remember, it's been a while since I looked at their financials. So there's more funds there available. So that's just the general term, that's what they're reporting on. So they're saying everything is great. There's no issues. Then they just give a little blurb there about the supplemental information that appears in the back. The next section is management discussion and analysis. And it's just a verbiage about what's in the financial statements themselves. It's sort of like what you see in a for-profit entity when the management talks about how good their business is before you get to the financial statements and the audit report and how everything is. I mean, they say this is management and discussion analysis, but I probably think there's probably only one section in here that Deb made a major contributed to. It's pretty boilerplate once it's designed in nature. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
What would have been, and will you point out that spot where it's probably Deb's contribution to it?
Yep.
That's not approved?
Yep. Basically, this first page is all just highlights of what happened. The assets and deferred outflows of the library exceeded the liabilities and deferred inflows for the fiscal year by that. Shows a change in that position. These are just the highlights. Overview of the financial statements. There again, it explains the government-wide financial statements, what they are, and we'll get into that in a minute, the fund financial statements, and the notes to the financial statements. Then it explains what the government-wide financial statements are, then the fund basis statements, and the governmental funds, notes to the financial statements. I've moved to page 11 and other information. This next page is pretty much an X taken out of the financial statements themselves and just reprinted here. Along with page 7 would be that also. So would the page 8 just be a summary of information? I think when you really, this chart really draws your attention to the fact that 85% of your revenue comes from property taxes, and how important that is to the operations and the continuance of the library itself. The next page, general fund budget highlights. That's their capital improvements. That's from inside the financials themselves. And long-term debt, economic factors, and next year's budget rates. That's the section that they would have asked Deb some questions on. And that's about it in this one. I mean, everything else is coming from the financials performance. It's just that issue. So then we get into the financial statements themselves, which starts on page 12. And trying to understand how governmental financial statements work. The financial statements that I prepare on a monthly basis are what they call fund basis statement, or fund statements. They only reflect, they're on what they call the modified accrual basis of accounting, which means basically the difference between what we prepare on a monthly basis and what is called full accrual is, you'll notice that there's no fixed assets on the balance sheet on your statements that we prepare monthly. There's no long-term debt on there when there was long-term debt. Those are considered to be accrual basis items for governmental purposes. Those are the two main differences between the fund basis statements and the government-wide statements, or the statement of net financial position, statement of net position.
And the pension is the other one.
And the accrued pension is the unfunded accrued pension, yeah. Those are, there are some, could be some other items, but they're usually not there. For instance, the general rule is, to have a receivable booked at the end of the year at 9/30, you have to receive it within 60 days. Okay. If it's 61 days, 62 days out, according to standards, it's not supposed to be recorded in the fund basis statements, but it would be recorded in the government-wide statements. And same way with payables. So, I mean.
So the numbers will never match up exactly, obviously. 'cause
No,
you're
they
using
won't.
different-
And there are schedules in here that reconcile between the two. So when we look at this first one here, this is the government-wide statement. This is what I would call the full accrual, which would reflect all assets, all liabilities. So you got your cash, taxes receivable, penal fine receivable, prepaid expenses. Capital assets being depreciated, that is actually a net number. That's the gross minus the accumulated depreciation. That the totals are just disclosed in the back. So total assets there are 2,372, 2,372,000. Deferred outlays of resources pension. This has to do with the payments of the pension, when it's paid, when it's not paid, and it's just another, instead of calling it an accrual, it's now considered a deferred outflow of resources. It's, personal opinion, it's just a little bit ludicrous of how it's worded, but that's my personal opinion. Current liabilities, accounts payable, due to other governments, which is actually the county, for their payroll, and payroll-related liabilities, they separated out. Net pension liability, that's the big number. that keeps moving every year. 835,000. Deferred inflows of pension, there again, that's all dealing with the timing of the payments that are being sent in and the actuality of what's owed or not owed. Investment in capital assets, you'll see that number will always agree to the capital assets being depreciated number up above. That's a requirement, because really that's not spendable. That's not spendable equity, that's not spendable item. Then restricted for branch capital improvements, that's the money for the Selma Johnson that was left over at the end of September that needed to be spent yet. Then unrestricted, 47,046. So you have a positive unrestricted net position even with the huge liability for the possible pension. So that's good. I mean, most governmental units, when they started to record that, were in a negative equity position, which means they didn't have enough assets current assets on the balance sheet to pay that potential liability. So in reality, if we liquidated everything right now, not counting the building because the building's not yours, if we liquidated everything right now for historical cost and paid it off as of this date and time, you would basically have $47,000 left. Now that's all based on historical cost for the equipment stuff, you know. Would you get, being depreciated, would you get that or not? That's another question. Looking at page 13, it's a statement of activities. Here again, this is the income statement. They start off, everything that you have is considered to be recreation and culture, according to the classifications of governmental accounting. And it always starts off with the expenditures in this format. So it's 981,000. Fees for services, these are direct fees. Operating grants, which are supposed to be directly related to the expenditures. So your net expense revenue is a negative 793. Then there are general revenues which are not related to the operations of the business. So it's not, the revenue is not generated from operating the business, i.e. the property taxes of 1.2, state resources, which are your state aid, and then interest revenue. So total revenues, $1,239,000, change in net position at the end of the period, $1,533,018, which then should tie back into the number that's at the bottom of page 12, which it does. Remember, most of that is tied up in fixed assets. It'd be nice if that was all cash, but that's not the reality of it. Then the next page is, on page 14, starts with the governmental funds, or the fund basis statements, which is exactly what we prepared. And this should be pretty much in line with what we issued in September, or that we issued for September. As you can see, the various cash in both the capital projects and the general fund, then the liabilities, and then the individual fund balances. Pretty much what you see every month, the type of format and stuff. More detail, I think, with ours, because this is not meant to be detail oriented. Then on page 15, we go to the reconciliation of the equity that is not shown on page 14, total fund balance $715,195, and then they reconcile to the $1,533,018 that was on the government-wide statements. You can see one of the reconciling items is the amount of fixed assets. You can see that the capital assets are actually 4.5 million. 4.5, roughly with 3.1 in depreciation. So that's how we get down to the net.
Can I ask a question on that? So
Sure.
I'm assuming a lot of that is books.
Correct.
As we dispose of books, do those assets get essentially cleared? Or are these just kind of ongoing, they just keep getting bigger and just depreciated out? As
We
opposed
try to
actually
make sure they're-
actively trying to manage them?
We're actively trying to manage them, trying to get them off.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that seems like an awful high number considering what our annual budget is, giving an average lifespan of materials. It just seems high for actually reflecting what's on our shelves.
Well, it would include, and it doesn't obviously include real estate, because that's not, so it's not this building, that building, or anything else, so it's, books,
Oh, But
furnishings.
but capital improvements that you've made to the building are included, i.e. the HVAC system.
Okay.
Okay, so, and the infamous leasehold improvement term that we use.
Mhm.
So, yeah, no, the buildings themselves are not, but then all the equipment is also.
I guess I'm assuming that as part of the audit process, there's a asset list that kind of generates these numbers. And how detailed is that, and how much time is spent managing that? Because, I mean, overall, that's a big number on our financials, that 1.5 million net. And again, the reality is that, if we attempted to sell everything, we're probably not gonna get 1.5 million, just because the value of it, the depreciation doesn't necessarily match actual value. So I'm trying to understand more of the process.
Well, at the end of each year, we reconcile out the new additions and then ask if there's been anything that's been taken away. The depreciation schedules that we have are sent over and they're reviewed. I mean, that's something that we can take a harder look at before we get into the next audit and see if there are some older books out there that are on that we just need to take off. Will I say it's perfect? No, it's not perfect.
No, it never would be, but I just.
But, yeah, we try to remove.
You answered my question. There is a process that is trying to actively manage that with a reasonable amount of effort, so that you're not tracking every single, $5 item either. But it just seems high for a total, given my perception of things, so. But it sounds like you're doing the right things, just.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll print one off and I'll print one for each of the, because we have it by branch. Okay, so we have one by branch. What I'll do is I'll print the most recent one off we have, which will be for the end of the year. And then I'll get them to Deborah and she can maybe get them to the branch library and for the capital asset side, see if they're still there. There may be something that we may have missed.
I would say there's probably a lot of books that, because what, I'm finding, they haven't done an inventory in I don't know how long. So when we go to find, especially being on Melcat now, the staff goes to pull books and they're not there. As I've been reading, I have a list that's stating that these books should be here, but they're not there. So, that, we try really hard to, when we've been, getting rid of shelves or whatever, desks, there's a number attached to every one of them. So I think they're really good at that piece of it. But, I mean, there may have been stuff missed over time, but I know that they are really good about that inventory list and getting stuff off of that, so.
I mean, during Chuck's tenure, we actually tried to print off an asset value of the books on a historical cost basis from the system. And, I mean, we were night and day, then trying to get the system cleaned up.
Yeah.
And it's just, so, I mean, that's something that can be, you can try to do again, because it would be great if the system matched the depreciation schedule.
Yeah.
Because the system has all the detail, every book, where our depreciation schedule, it's one lump for the year. I mean, in the ideal situation, that's what it would be. But I think the man hours that it would take to do that is probably not.
Yeah,
not-
yeah, it's not that
Yeah.
we get any more money or do
No.
anything, but we
No.
don't benefit by having that number exact.
I mean, that's,
So,
that's,
But is there things that we can do to make them closer?
Sure.
That don't take huge amounts of effort, just so that
Right.
there's, that they're not apples and oranges.
sure.
I know as we're actively weeding in all of the branches, I think that number might get closer, you know, because we are removing those items from the system and they're getting done, so it may
I mean, that's something we
get
can
better over time.
work on it this summer when nobody has anything to do, right?
Bad timing.
So, but anyways, we'll work on that area. Moving to page 6, this is a statement of revenue, expenditures, changes in fund balance. This is, again, the fund basis statements, which is exactly what you get on a month-to-month basis, and showing the numbers that are pretty much at our year end,
Did you mean page 16?
or 16, sorry. And down at the bottom, you can see the transfer and transfer out, 270 that was made a year. Then this is a reconciliation on page 17 of the change in net assets of fund balance. The fund basis statements compared to the government-wide statements. And you can see there again, the deferred pension come into play, repayment of the debt, capital outlay expenditures, because on the fund basis statement, capital outlay is expensed. On the government-wide statement, it's capitalized and depreciated. Big difference. So that's the net between all of those items to come to the reconciliation. The next section is the notes to the financial statements, and I am going to say you can peruse this as you want. Take it to bed with you to help you get to sleep. But it's basically all the same. I think the one that probably that everybody is most interested in and causes the most controversy is the pension item.
And how it can just arbitrarily, for all practical purposes, from an outsider's standpoint, just arbitrarily change from year to year. Like this year was a good year. Last year was a bad year.
Right. So, I mean, that note itself starts on page 27 and then continues on until page 31. So it's a huge note. It has a lot of information in it. Some of it's applicable, some of it's not applicable. I mean, the one that, if you look on page 30, the one that scares people the most, and was a big question last year, was just a change in the assumptions of the interest rate could have a dramatic effect on the liability. And so it says net pension liability for the year. They're basing it on an 8% rate of return. Is that achievable? Hopefully it is, over the life of the fund. But if it decreases to 7%, your liability balloons $300,000 to 1.1. If it's up, it basically goes down. It goes down a little under 300,000. So the ability to make sure that the rate of return is being calculated properly is huge in this area. Because as you can see, if that number varies one way or the other, it has a significant effect on your potential liability.
rate is lower in a year where you're paying out more or paying out less makes a difference also.
Correct.
So that's, you know.
Yep.
Now, I know when, a year ago, we talked about this, and at one point we had representatives from the county in here to talk about this. And our county liaison, Richard Schmidt, mentioned this as part of the sale of assets for the hospital. That dollars from that sale were, the county had attempted to go to basically contribute to the underlying thing. And it was unclear in those discussions, at least my recollection, as to when, given calendar years and fiscal years, those dollars were applied, or if they were applied to the library's piece of that. And I'm assuming that's potentially part of the reason that our liability this year is less, is that those funds got accrued in a time period this represents, is an assumption I'm making. Could I point any specific place in here that says that? No, but I'm just trying to tie some of these things I know to the results I'm seeing.
Because, I mean, you're all part of the same retirement system, and so there's this bucket that's related to county employees. So when they apply that $1 million to that, they apply it to the whole bucket. So then, from there, they split out the liability between the funds of the different county areas that are included in that. So, yeah, I think you're correct in that area.
So correct meaning they did apply it,
To the overall
but it went to the
liability.
big bucket, and that's why we see these numbers, okay.
Yeah. And then basically all the other stuff is just, there is in the back, starting on page 35, the budget versus actual amount, which is what we show on a monthly basis based on the fund basis statements. So those are pretty standard, and it's what you've been seeing in the past. Then in the back of it, after page 37, there is another letter from them regarding the audit itself. And this is a standard letter that is in all audits. Any significant audit findings, what are major areas in the financial statements. On page 2 of that, the next page, where there's difficulties encountered in performing the audit, no corrected or uncorrected mistakes. They noted no misstatements during the course of the audit. Any disagreements with management? There was no disagreements with management with the audit firm. Management representation. There's a representation letter signed by management saying that we gave them everything that they needed to do that. They will consult, does management consult with other independent accountants? No, there was no consultation. We're not independent, so we're not considered in that category because of the services we perform. Other audit findings. There was no items there. Other matters. They applied procedures to the mirrors thing. It talks about that again, and that this is restricted for internal use. If there was anything in there, there's nothing in there that's negative in nature. Everything was fine. So you got a clean opinion, which is what you want. Everything's as stated. I know in my conversation with the partner in charge, he was thankful for the stuff we gave him. It made his life easier, and that's basically why we do what we do.
Well, good job, David, thank you
Yeah.
for that. Well, it is what you do,
A good
still,
job all
thank
the
you.
way around,
Yeah.
because,
Yeah,
That's good. Good stuff.
Okay, any other questions on either the financials or the audit? David?
No, but I'm just wondering, oh, so no, I don't have
Okay, then I think a couple motions are in order. One, to approve the financial reports for March.
I will make a motion to accept the March financial statement.
any. I'll support.
Motion support to approve the financial statements from March as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. And then motion to approve our annual audit, or
So
accept our audit.
so move.
Second.
A motion and support to accept the annual audit from fiscal year 2018. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, David.
Before we totally leave it off the hook.
Okay.
Remember you had sent around the email about scheduling a time to meet with him? And I'm sorry, I think my emails got really big around that time and I lost track of, and I'm not even sure if I replied to that. So I'm wondering, did we, okay, I apologize, did we land on a date that,
I've got, so far I have 2 people that can do May 3rd,
May
which
3rd?
is next
It's a
Friday.
And I can make, what time was that at?
What time works for you?
May 3rd is wide open.
Wide open. What works for you, ladies? Early's good?
I can't make it.
Right.
I can't make anything next week.
Oh, you could
so,
probably
uh,
teach us and all
No,
that.
no.
I mean, don't, I just gave you the earlier dates, because I thought you wanted to get it done, but if you wanted to go a little farther out, that's fine too. That's totally up to you.
Well, I probably am now remembering why I didn't respond to the email, because I'm going to go with this class for the prom on Mackinac Island, and I think I was waiting for times, and I still don't know times, so I apologize, I will find out, since it's next year coming up, I'm sure they know, I just haven't been communicating.
Like Dave said, we can push it out. I know
Okay.
as May goes on, my schedule is getting
It's
Right.
busier.
It
busier.
is busier.
But,
Okay. Well, would, so just out of curiosity, like at 9 o'clock, if we did it early in the morning, okay.
That works for me.
Well, then I will get myself together and let you know before the date is out.
Okay.
So we can, and I apologize for not.
And then you know
Responding.
what,
Yep.
thank you so much.
Okay.
And then,
All right.
Okay. Administrative reports were included in the packet. Are there any questions?
You did have next to Leadership Learning Lab ask me about this.
So-
that's-
so
that was my only
I
one.
included this, when I got presented with this, they started this last year, and this was developed through the Community Foundation, and there was, this Fry Foundation contributed a lot of money towards it, the Rotary. So I went to the first one on April 9th, and so as I've been in the Chamber Leadership Program, I mean, these are 2 totally different programs, but this is just going to be amazing because it helps you have to do this assessment of yourself and what kind of a leader you are. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the DISC.
Yeah.
And so that was very interesting, and based on what letter you are, it kind of defines like who you are. And kind of when I was reading it, I'm like, yeah, that's me. And then it kind of helps you see your style, your leadership style, and how you can get along with, someone of a different style. So these different sessions that we have, I just think it's just going to be really beneficial for my role as director for the library, director for the, the community. So it's going to be interesting. I'll keep you updated. I did send everyone an email. Gary is retiring. He's our Winnequa branch manager. So I spoke with Kim and Pam yesterday, so we are going to be planning a party, probably kind of like an all-day open house. It will be on May 28th, which is our next board meeting. It's his day where he works the morning here and the afternoon in Onekama, but we will just schedule him all day here. That way, when people come in, you know, because he worked, I think he worked quite a few years here, longer than what he did out in Onekama, so more people would know him here.
We are doing something at Onekama too.
Are you?
Or,
Okay.
Well, are we?
Huh?
Or do we need to do something for him to buy it? Because I think he's only been the branch manager there.
Just a few years, they
But I
said.
think people would want something.
Yeah, it's kind of
At least,
because I know a lot of people don't start coming back until, so, I mean, we can have that discussion.
At least trees or something.
Yeah.
And I, so, yeah, I need to help with that myself, but, so.
So, yeah, so in reference to that position, it's currently posted internal, depending on whether or not somebody signs it. They have to sign it by this Thursday. If no one signs, then we post it external, which we're hoping we can get that out there quickly to get it filled before summer starts.
Okay.
We started spring cleaning and having the staff really, especially in the basement, their work areas, all the stuff down there. So they started last week and we continue to try to get that space cleaned up before summer starts.
Any other questions on the administrative reports for Deborah? Hearing none, let's move on to committee reports. Technology committee did not meet, personnel committee did not meet. Facilities committee did meet, there were, I believe, minutes.
We did meet, and we discussed the fact of one of the unresolved issues was redoing the tech room, and then Deborah proceeded to show us some of the issues that are kind of like safety issues. Some of the carpeting is coming up on the stairs, and she brought up the fact that people do trip on some of the loose things there. The furniture, when we saw, and I went up there and looked, I was there using the computer, and the chairs are really dirty and they cannot be cleaned. And if we went ahead and did this, because we would also include the paint and new carpeting, and what did we say? Carpeting's been in there 5 years, or I don't really know how long.
I think
But
longer than that.
my understanding is carpeting has an 8-year lifespan. So we actually need to bring this up to date, and everything that we put in there will be movable when we decide to go anywhere else. And we understand that we have a Carnegie library, and there's only so much that we can do here. And then, of course, that also went on to, well, if we had our druthers, if we can get a new library, we would build it north of town and have it on one floor and have all of these wonderful things in it. So if we repainted it, we would repaint it in the color scheme that Pam and Kim have kind of laid out so that everything will tie in. And now, were we going to get new computers there to replace the gaming computers that are going down for the teen area? Did we discuss that?
Nick
or
has
was that
come up with
technology
new computers for the teen area because
Oh,
of
okay.
the gaming and stuff, so.
Oh, okay, so that's the way. I wasn't sure what I read.
Yeah, it's gone back and forth.
Okay. So anyway, and so the facility committee would like to recommend that we vote to upgrade the tech room also, we voted to upgrade the teen area. Now we would like to make sure that we upgrade the tech room also to make it safe and to get some cleanable furniture in there. And also to just make it look brighter and to tie in. And I think that it's important to the community that we actually follow through with this, because I hear on the street, and that's the only way that I can put it, because sometimes I hear it from multiple people, that they put out all of this money to do all of these things and then nothing happens. So the facility committee would like to recommend that we go ahead and upgrade the tech room. And then we discussed the Selma funds, that we need to spend those, and we would like to try to keep the Selma fund spending in alignment with the fiscal year, because unfortunately or fortunately, that money has to be spent by December 30th. Well, we would like to change that and make it more by August 1, because some of the equipment takes 3 months to come in. And I think, was there a chart that was in here?
Yeah, it's included because it's on it's further down.
Yeah,
on the-
it's farther down where Deborah lined up where we would need to get new chairs for the meeting room up here, and outdoor signs for the Manistee and and all the branches, and new chairs and desks for the staff as needed, which totals out to $26,400. So, I think we should recommend, and the facility committee recommends that we go ahead and fund, to spend the Selma fund. Then we discussed maker's space, and I put a definition in there for you. It's where people of like interest or shared interests get together and they can do things. And I thought it was very interesting because I happened to get a May Women's Day. It's just, one of those magazines you get at the grocery store. And they discussed what libraries are doing and how they're now becoming more community centers, and that there's a library in California where you can rent do-it-yourself equipment so that you don't have to go out and buy what you need. I was in a library in Florida, and they actually had a kitchen where they did cooking demonstrations, and then they got to eat. And they also had a sewing area where they had sewing machines, and then they would have sewing like Carol does here. And they also had, in one of their branch libraries, they had a welding area. And this is all through Makerspace. And you determine what you put in your makerspace by doing a survey in your communities to find out what people would like to see in their libraries. Because, as I say, they're becoming more community centered. And as an aside, Joyce and I, which I have to call her today, are planning on checking out the new Interlochen Library, which just opened. And they label it as Interlochen Public Library and Community Center. So I understand that it is really very wonderful. When you go to the children's department, they have adult doors and they have children's doors that you can go into. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I've been watching it being built. So that's from the facilities committee with my editorial comments.
So is there a
So
motion we need to make at this point?
I would like to make that motion that that we go ahead and upgrade the tech room.
We don't talk about that later on?
I mean,
We
it
can
could
talk
be
about it
under
under-
old business library projects updates. I mean,
I'm sorry, she just made a motion though, so there's a motion on the floor.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll support the motion.
okay, so we have motion support. Is there a dollar amount or any constraints on that?
I think we,
And there's some in the notes here, but your motion, what specifically are you requesting other than to upgrade?
we're upgrading, carpeting, painting, and chairs.
Chairs and computer corrals.
So,
This was presented last year, so we figured the cost, it might be a little bit higher, but we could keep it at 11,000, you know, because we didn't know the cost of the painting. But we do have the cost for the carpet and the new furniture. I don't think I brought that, but I know it was presented to the board last year. But we could, you know, if you set the dollar amount, we could make sure we kept it under that.
So the motion is for $11,000 to replace carpet, paint, and provide new furniture.
Correct. At
Is
12,
it a not to exceed $11,000?
correct.
are we sure that 11 is enough?
Well,
I mean, I
that's
don't
what I
want-
don't know.
I mean,
We don't
we should
wanna
do it
limit
right
it.
versus doing it.
And I don't want to approve, I don't want to give my voice of approval to a motion that doesn't know at least a ballpark figure for it.
We
At
said-
least have a not to exceed
Right.
number in it. And discussion on the motion is what we're doing right now, so
Right,
that's
right.
my.
Well, I'm trying to make sure that we understand what the motion
Sure.
is.
And I know you did submit some numbers.
Yeah,
for
last
this, and I don't
year-
have it with me.
I don't have it with
Yeah, I don't, I'm sorry, I didn't bring it with me, but I know
we did have.
Pam had put something together last year that was, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, we could do 15,000 and then that way we'd be sure to.
So just so I can just have ease of mind, because of the structural integrity of the
Mezzanine.
supporting structure of the tech center, we can never be used for a teen center,
No,
because it,
no, it could be, but it would be,
Without much
Dollar
more.
Right,
more
dollar.
weight, yeah.
It would be
and the dollar amount,
significant.
we don't know, because no one ever gave us the numbers on that.
Correct.
there,
Okay.
We haven't asked for that.
We haven't asked for it, okay.
Yeah.
Did we just, so I must have missed that meeting, so we just abandoned the idea totally?
I kind of asked him a ballpark figure, but like with everything else with them, I got no response. You know, like it took us 6 months to get just that assessment. So I did ask him, because I know
And
it
there
I know we
was,
talk about this at every meeting, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to get
and
it
in
clear
that
in my head.
report, there were some engineering ballparks. I mean, and it depended on things, but I mean, it was significant dollars.
So as a board, we decided, just to remind me, that we were going to abandon that idea
Uh,
for
Well,
now.
For now.
For
I would
now.
say for this
Okay.
fiscal
Now,
year,
that
for
project
this-
is.
So then
Yeah.
it leads me to what I said last time, which is I'm just so uncomfortable spending money on a space, good money, for nice upgrades, for a space that sometime in the future, hopefully the near future, we would be addressing and changing.
however, if you look
Okay.
at the details of carpet is carpet, so as long as it's not tech carpet versus, you know, teen carpet, which I don't think it's carpet, that's an expense that would be there regardless.
Well, the
Paint-
corral for
Paint is,
computers.
well, I'm kind
Okay.
of going down the easy stuff.
Okay.
Because I think those are expenses that we can all agree are necessary, safety,
Right.
et cetera.
Right,
You know, paint, I think, falls in that same category. I think then you get to the furniture. So we're talking chairs and basically desks. Again, is there anything specific about that furniture that says it is custom tailored to that space, or it could equally be moved to some other
It can
place
all be
if that
moved.
was, you know, thing. So,
It would be purchased in mind, knowing that at some point it could be moved.
Okay, that's good to know, all right.
now, obviously, wiring and some of that stuff that might be necessary because the layout of where things plug in might be different. That's a one-time expense that wouldn't be able to be, you know, saved if there was a move. But I think the vast majority of these expenses are either permanent upgrades to that space regardless of its use, or are for equipment that could be relocated if there was need.
And I see your point, Tim,
Mhm.
also, but I just also feel if we do make a change and move the tech room to a more, you know, a better location, I mean, I still see that being 3 to 5 years away, and I think an $11,000 investment to make that space nicer for 3 years
Yes.
is probably still
Is a good one.
worthwhile, yeah.
Yeah, that's good
so,
perspective.
yeah.
Although, now I wanna, so I'm justifying, now I wanna put in my 2 cents worth that kind of, I think, backs up some of your thoughts on this is, and this goes back a couple of years in conversations, actually before Deborah was here, in some visualizations of different tech spaces that we saw. And in some of them, the model was less chair desk and more just stand-up kiosk that you just kind of walk up to, spend 5 minutes checking an email, and then leaving. Our space and its location isn't designed for that.
No, we do have one stand-up computer.
What I would actually request in a plan that says, you know, we're gonna keep that space as the tech area, you know, for the near future. I would like to see us looking into stand-up kiosks, like 2, to be located down in the main level, that could serve that kind of very quick access need and start bringing that experience into the main space as opposed to locking it away.
Thank you,
So-
Barry, I really appreciate that comment. That's,
I
I'm so
thought you
glad that's what
probably
you're
would.
thinking, yeah. I wouldn't have known enough to suggest something like that, but that's exactly what I was hoping to try to figure out, so, right.
And
2 stand-ups down on the main
And as
floor.
Barbara said, there is one upstairs, because I know that when I first got here, there was a request. I think they had one, but it wasn't working, and so I
Right.
told them to get it working. And so this woman was very appreciative, because, you know, there are those people and those. And I think overall, I know we discussed this a year ago, and I know you guys discussed this way before my time. And I think what I struggle with, as a library director, I understand the need for the computers to be in a different space. I get that, I've been in those libraries, I've seen them. But I think the question that we have to ask ourselves is, you know, we keep talking about this and hashing it. What is the solution? You know, we don't have the space, and that goes back way before my time. I mean, this has been talked about for years. I mean, Roz has been, you know, on the board for quite a few years, and I see it, and, you know, I just found a strategic plan that Barbara was looking for. You know, this is something that's been discussed for years, is people are talking about there's no meeting space, there's no this, no this, no this. But I think the question that should be on the table, what is the solution? And I think that goes back to last month when you were talking, you know, what is our big vision? And like Barbara said a little while ago, you know, and it's been talked about. Hey, I was looking at some property down the road, you know, that's my vision. I have this big library planned out. That's my vision.
I like that vision.
Yeah, that's my
You know,
vision too.
I like that vision a
So-
lot, because to me, the library is not the building, and I know that's probably not a popular viewpoint. It doesn't mean I don't appreciate history,
Right.
the architecture, and the role this building has played in our community as a neighborhood
Well, we can still keep it
But
as the
we-
Manistee
We've been
City
talking that
Library.
this could be a branch
A branch.
library,
Right.
you know,
So I guess, I hear what you're saying, Deborah, and I kind of get excited about that too. Like I said last time, I don't want to nickel and dime us. I like Roz's thoughts that for the next 3 years, these types of improvements are maybe, it's a small amount to provide an impact and a better space for people to utilize. But what I really do appreciate is Barry's comments about bringing technology to the first floor, because that's really, I think, where my bristly point is. I want to see some technology brought down to the main floor for those people who maybe don't necessarily want to go upstairs for whatever reason, can't, don't want to, whatever. I think when people who go from different libraries come to our community, they walk in, that's what they're probably used to, and I think having them visible. But beyond that, we made a decision not to utilize that old conceptual plan because last time you guys informed me the community didn't buy into it. It was very expensive, and so it was not a vision that we're working towards. Rather, we're doing what we can with what we have and making small improvements here and there to better our spaces. And so I'm fine with that, but because I'm a planner, it's so hard for me to go with that flow, and I'm trying really, really hard and trusting. So if I question a lot, I really appreciate the consideration to allow me to work it through.
Well, I think there are pieces missing, and I think you have to go back probably 4 years at this point in the discussions of we as an organization, and pretty much predates the current membership of this board, with the exception of myself, decided we were going to invest $500,000 in this building. And at that time, we basically said, because we're investing $500,000, we are not going to pursue other buildings, other things, because that was kind of that, one of those points.
Pivotal moments.
Now, when that expenditure starts depreciating over time, you get farther away from that, and then you start opening up those conversations again. But, I think that was kind of a decision point. But what is missing, so then we got that done, sigh of relief after 5 years of arguing and bickering. But once that's done, then we realized, wow, we've been neglecting a lot of little things. And I think that's what the focus is right now is let's stop neglecting paint and carpeting and, the things that are necessary. They're not huge dollar amounts. Let's tackle those. And I think that should give us an opportunity while we're going through, whether it be room by room or area by area and doing that over a period of time, we should be starting to think 10 years down the road, what are we going to do? And start that planning process. So while we're ticking off the low-hanging fruit and accomplishing necessary things, we're also starting to get ready for whatever that future is. And I don't think we as a board have started thinking along what process are we going to take to make the 10-year plan or the 20-year plan or whatever that is. We've been in some ways caught up with a lot of details, whether that be facilities details or just process and personnel details over the last year and a half. I think a lot of that heavy lifting is behind us. We've got the pieces in place. We can go through these projects kind of one by one. But we now then need to, what is longer term? And I think a proposal around our strategic planning somewhere on our agenda is that first step.
Yeah, I agree.
Is let's get that work done through an organization like I think is being proposed that I think can help us think longer term, bigger picture, as well as focusing on needed process. And then once that's in place, let's say a year from now, and we're still going through our 3 years of painting and carpeting and all of those things. We've still got a couple more years then to start working on that process. So that's how I see all these things fitting together. It is though hard, even spending dollars on painting and carpeting. Well, does this fit the longer term plan? And, you know, the answer is we hope so. That's why we spent time coming up with a standardized color scheme, you know, standardized things so that, you know, because you come in now and it's like, well, that room doesn't look like that room, or that doesn't look like this. You know, that's really poor planning when each room looks and behaves differently. We can at least deal, and I think we have put the pieces in place to do that. But that still doesn't get us down the road longer term.
And our patrons are noticing the changes that have been made, and they will notice this. The other thing is that I think that we have some very talented people in tech and in furniture placement, that if we decide to have two stand-up computers, like, I mean, I would really like it on the first floor if I come in and just want to print things off. That I bet you they would find a space for that.
I know we're currently talking, and I know we can add that to it.
Right.
In the
I
middle,
think you
right
can.
now, where behind the circulation desk, where the catalog is, where you sign in to go up there.
Right.
We're planning on changing that out. I'm not sure exactly what it looks like, but because we currently have our fax machine in the basement, and so we're going to get electrical up so we can get that upstairs, because a lot of libraries, the last library that I was at, I saw from another library, they're making self-serve fax services. Then it doesn't tie up the staff. You know, currently, one staff member has to take the fax, go downstairs, wait for it to come back. Well, you make it self-serve, and people can help themselves. So we are planning a space, so I think we can make that happen.
And I think if you know, my suggestion there, you know, we take forward, I think also trying to understand the placement and usability of the self-service check-in or checkout kiosk, as opposed, because in some ways that looks like a
Yeah.
computer.
Yeah,
It's
right,
like,
exactly.
oh, but no, it's not signaged appropriately, it
Yeah.
just, and then you go that next step is like, that whole area in the center there, in my opinion, does not reflect what we're trying to communicate from an aesthetic, from a customer service, from a usability, from a technology. It's just calling out for, help me. So I mean, and it's just like, you know, and that's one of the problems in all this is that it's an onion. You pull away one layer and it's like, well, now we should do that, and now we should do that.
Yep.
And then
Slippery slope.
what you could accomplish in 3 months now is 18 months, and then that makes everyone frustrated. Well, we're not getting it done, but yes, but we're doing this. And so balancing that.
Well, to move things along, we have a motion on the floor, and we just had discussion. If the maker of the motion would entertain an amendment to the motion to not only, see, I've actually never seen this, to ensure that when the motion is implemented, it reflects the discussion that we just had, specifically that the furniture purchased is furniture that can be moved, and that at a minimum, 2 stand-up stations and computers are provided for on the first floor.
I think that.
I would,
And then I would recommend that you increase the budget item up to 15,000.
Working wire
And-
downstairs.
and increase the budget not to exceed $15,000.
I would support that
Okay.
amendment
The amendment, okay.
to the original motion. Is there any then discussion on the amendment?
And you have thoughts on where stand-up kiosk could go, Deborah?
Yeah, I
We'll make
do.
it work.
Okay, all right.
Brainstorm with Pam.
I'm not hearing any further discussion on the amendment. So voting on the amendment now, to the original motion. All in favor signify by saying
For
aye.
doing money, so it's a roll call vote.
It's not really well,
We do, we
We're
say not to
authorizing
exceed
an
$15,000.
expense.
yeah, but it's, yeah,
I don't think it hurts.
All right.
So,
Helen?
Helen, would you call a roll?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, so now that brings to the table the amended motion for discussion, further discussion. Hearing none, Helen, would you take the roll on the amended motion?
yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, motion passed.
Fantastic.
If you
Thank
don't
you.
mind, I'm gonna excuse myself.
Have a good day. All right, can we go on? Do you want me to do the Selma thing under old business or,
Nope, we got that on the
It's
agenda.
on the agenda
Okay.
later.
Because that's new business.
Yep.
okay.
Okay, anything else for the facilities committee? Policy committee then.
Okay, the minutes were included, and it's actually not draft anymore, sorry for taking that off. We are still working on the patron code of conduct policy. But the committee feels that we've done our work, it is being sent off for legal review, so. And we have also, back in the fall, the policy committee, when the board had looked at the bylaws, we reviewed some of the discussions we had had before, some suggested changes. That's being sent off to other opinions and experts. And then the policy committee is also looking at the financial policy, which the finance committee had been working on. So that's where we're at right now. So we've got a lot of things in process, but hopefully ready to get to the board May and June.
But nothing for the board today,
Nothing,
just an update, okay? Any questions for the policy committee? Finance committee.
And finance committee, we spent a lot of time on our financial policy, and Deborah and I are meeting Friday morning with Dave, because a lot of our financial policy, if we're gonna make changes in rules, it ties in with tax law, it ties in with government regulations, so we need a lot of Dave input, so we're gonna discuss with him the things we've looked at, or researching other libraries' policies. And then we have started talking about the next budget, so we will be working on that at our next finance committee meeting, and the board will see that a month from now.
Okay. Any questions for the finance committee? Old business, the library projects update.
I think we can move on.
Because I think we'll touch a little bit on, again, when we get to Selma, since there's, another approval for certain expenditures. I know you have some questions when we get there. Well, I guess I do have a question under that topic. So, and this ties back to the meeting I missed last month. So, was there a decision, in reading the minutes, we're gonna hire a general contractor before we move forward with the tile? And I don't see any discussion on that at this meeting, so where does that stand, I guess?
I think that the facilities committee has to work that out.
Okay,
So we'll have to meet and,
okay. It's just from a priority standpoint, we gotta get that done, and it just seems like we're coming up with reasons not to move forward on that.
that's,
And
I think timing-
not having been here for that discussion, reading the minutes, it's like, how did that come out of discussion? I'm sure there was reasons, it's hard for me to understand, so I'm just kind of saying, please move forward, please move forward.
right, I think that we're all feeling that frustration is that we want to not just be, we want to be a doing board. We want to move forward
Right.
and see some action from.
And it was just the idea that if we start these projects, Deborah's being asked questions by the tile company, do we want this? And she doesn't have the expertise to answer it. Who do we get that will have expertise to be a project manager? We really don't have a staff person
Right.
who can
Right.
take that on, so that
And
was.
then-
But my concern,
Can we
is
find
there
one?
someone in the community
Right.
that can do that? Or are we gonna find that everyone's too busy and won't be able to move forward? So, but,
Yeah, so there should be a deadline when we know that.
And I think we talked about that last time, like, we would like a deadline, we'd like it to be wrapped up. But those two proposals were like apples to oranges. They were hard to understand, the differences between them. There were construction aspects that, like, I didn't really understand the finishing touches that were my big concern. One talked about finishing, the other one didn't talk about finishing.
And
And
I just want to add something here. I'm willing to talk to my jack of all trades man who maybe has some idea on that, and just to get more information. And, because we need somebody in that field who maybe knows somebody somewhere that might be able to do that, and I'm willing to contact him and talk to him about.
well, I think we probably need to do more, and even more research. I mean,
Well,
there'll have to be.
that's
and
where I
is
was
it-
gonna
And is it a
start.
facilities committee, or is it really, do we,
well, it shouldn't be the board making
Right,
that. It
no,
needs to
so-
be delegated either
To
to
someone
staff or to
or-
a committee or both, but,
I think probably staff and committee, and we can probably do some research on that.
so can we expect a proposal at next month's meeting for the board? I'm trying
Oh,
to
I know.
submit a little
You know,
goal
and
there.
choices is- yeah, it
You
would
know,
be-
if at all possible, yes.
Okay, good, as long
How
as that's
is
the
that?
goal, things will always come up that.
How
change
is that? If at all possible,
Good,
yes.
good. Okay, strategic plan discussion. Who's leading that? I'm not.
Joyce was proposed.
Do we need to, oh, I don't want to put that off till next month.
Okay, and when we say strategic plan proposal, okay, that's fine.
Everyone was given a copy of that last month.
Okay.
So I will, remark that I think you need to understand what the strategic plan is, who the strategic plan is being written for. So up until now, and maybe even, so when I looked at this proposal, I'm not sure if I understand if it's a board strategic plan, a director strategic plan, a patron strategic plan.
Community.
Community, yes,
Yeah.
overall community.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I understand, and one of the reasons why I'm left a little bit unsure, a lot unsure, is because part one in the preparation, they talk about forming a strategic planning committee, which I think is a great idea to have a cross-section of folks, stakeholders, right, to come in and talk. But this committee is going to be the committee that's going to have a half-day retreat to identify core values, vision, and key success factors. So that's a huge, that's huge, right there.
They did that in 2012,
Um,
2011. They did the same concept through the alliance.
That
Yeah.
was just, was that a board one?
No,
or
there
that
was
the
a huge list. I can go get the.
Well, Deborah, don't get confused, they had community input, and they invited a ton of people to come and talk, but I don't think it was those people that formed the values and the vision and the key success factors. They did talk to
They were inputs.
they
into that
provided
process.
input, and so the difference to me is the board creating those and then using the stakeholder group to benchmark off of, to say, what do you think about, or would you like to add to, or some other, so it's a reversal. It's the committee telling the board what its core values are, or it's the board deciding on their own. And seeking input and advice to see if it's meeting the general larger stakeholder group. So that's the part one. The planning committee then meets again in part three to review everything, which is, it's great, and I do not want to sound like I don't want to exclude other people, but again, is it the board's plan? Because if it's the board's plan, all of us should be there through this process. Especially the parts where key things are being decided. That's my feeling on it. I personally don't want to be excluded from it. From the formation of the values, the formation of the goals, or whatever they're choosing to call it. I don't want to be excluded from it. I don't want to be just given updates at our board meeting about it. I want to be a part of every of it. I don't know if anybody doesn't want to be a part of the process, because some of us would not be a part of some really key moments in the process. If I'm reading this correctly.
I guess what I got from this was that this is a community-wide, they will be going out and surveying different people in the community, which includes Wellston and Calva and all of our outlying branches. And so this committee is a makeup of community people, board members, and their staff, if I'm reading it correctly. And then they all come together and figure out what each community wants and how they can implement this. Or whether or not it's even
Don't
reasonable.
misunderstand, I totally understand that. I mean,
Right.
we have been talking about having a lot of community input into the strategic plan from even before I did the first update to the 2012 one. It absolutely has to happen.
It does.
And it should be as in-depth as we possibly can to capture as many folks' thoughts on it. But you take all that information and then we as a board review it all so that when we create our board's direction for the library, we're using that as advice. And then the board is we're using it as advice to create our board's goals. Here, I feel like we've got a planning committee made up of those stakeholders.
That's telling the board this is
telling
what
the
you're
board.
gonna do.
And
Right.
and there's up to three board members on that committee.
Yes, exactly.
Not,
Not the whole board.
right, yeah, and I have questions about that too, the makeup that, does the board, and obviously the board is instrumental in picking who's on this committee. It doesn't talk about, staff members being on there also, library staff besides Deborah.
Yep, it
does. Key staff.
Well, it
I
has
thought it
six,
did.
well, it
Yeah.
just says, well, it does, but.
May include it, yeah, I mean, part of it is, who is this, is this our, I was a little confused about if this is what we want, and it might be, but it is a community plan. I don't know, the other thing that, my thing is, 2014, I was not on the board when they did the big plan, and when you talk about the plan that was, let's say rejected by the community, it was a $3 million plan, including the HVAC and major renovations to this building. They had one-to-one interviews with 43 community members. And the fact that we're gonna go back again and do more of that, I have a feeling we need to really study what was done before. I feel like someone's gonna say, gee, 5 years ago, I got called into a room for this other study and you did this. Why are you coming back only 5 years later? Has the community changed that much that we need to resurvey everybody? I just wanna make sure we're comfortable moving from the 2014 and making sure we're using that as in, so what did we learn from this? What do we need to know from a future strategic plan? Especially if we're going through a similar process with gathering the community and, going out there to public and saying, we need your input. It's like, well, we got a lot of input
Well,
But that
5
was,
years ago.
but I believe that was that was a capital campaign feasibility study. That's different than your strategic plan. But what I'm referring back to is 2011, 2012. I have the binder in my office. It has all the details. I know I had shared a couple months back with you guys, because remember we were talking
I've
about
read it thoroughly.
the master plan and the.
Yeah, I've read all of that many times.
and I think what you're saying is that process that was gone through in 2012 is a process that you're familiar with. And what you're reading here is a different process that has similar aspects, but it's organized differently.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I mean, I understand this process, I understand the process that was done before, and to support what Roz is saying, I don't see anywhere in this proposal for this new process, a review of work done prior, which I think is very, very important to have in this proposal as well. Nowhere does it talk about, so just because she's calling this a master plan,
And this
it's,
is, yeah, this
it's
is right,
important
it's
to know what happened from that effort, just like all the other efforts. I'm saying, I think that a planning committee is a good idea, but here, in this process, we need to understand that that planning committee is going to drive the board's plan, instead of the board driving the plan. The board utilizing the strategic planning's comments and input and expertise for the board to make the decisions. It is not a board plan, in my opinion. I think it's
Well,
more, I think.
So I guess the
she's
question I
saying
have is, if we have an idea as to what we want, and I'm not sure we're there yet,
Right.
Is this firm capable of working with or changing their standard process to operate in the way we would like it to be, or not?
Well,
And
yeah.
Well, my other concern is that hopefully this group is up to date, because I see libraries totally changing from checking out books and reading books to becoming more community centers and making not just books available for rentals, so to speak, but also equipment and classes and teaching people how to do different things. So the libraries that I've been to, I do happen to have a strategic plan that I picked up in Florida. And yes, I did bring it. And the whole thing was just so totally different, and I don't know who did this. But this is the way their strategic plan looks like, and it's out for the community, and I thought that was really pretty interesting. And as I say, I don't know who did it, but this was the particular library that had like about 4 different areas that were pertinent to that particular community library.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments, because this board, the evolution of it for the last 4 years, has talked about the role of the library in the community and what the changing role of libraries in general. And so some of the ideas that you were mentioning, that you're noticing in libraries, have been hashed out and thought about. And this board is very different than the first board I met in 2014. So, I mean, we've come a long way. And I will also say that I love that little brochure, but usually those are produced after.
That's the end product.
Yeah,
Right.
after you've done
They're all
one thing. That's a
pages.
I
marketing.
totally understand that
But
this
there's
is
a,
the
there's a
end
big document
product.
behind that.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the.
But
Yeah, they're all one
I
page.
totally
But
appreciate that,
I
that's great.
totally, but
Yeah.
you know, to have somebody say, here, why don't you take this?
Yeah, that's a nice communication piece.
And that's exactly what I thought. So if this turns out to be the end product, you know, where it makes it, because it's easy for everybody in the community to read, and you have to make sure that you don't exceed a 6th grade reading level if you're going out
Yeah.
to the community.
So I guess my thoughts are, do we want a board strategic plan, or do we want a,
Library.
Oh,
well,
community.
no, it's a library strategic plan, if it's a board, or is it a community one where you're actually, utilizing other partners? The plan is actually the goals of other partners as well. It's different plan.
From my perspective, as a board, our responsibility is to plan for our future. So I think, yes, it is a board / library system strategic plan. But to do that, you need all of that input. So.
Do I sound like I don't want community?
No, no,
input?
no,
No,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
just,
Phew,
you know,
I'm like,
because I was afraid that I was sounding like I didn't, so I didn't want to cut it there.
Yeah, you know.
But having said that, and I think this is key, is we need whoever is facilitating this process to be experts in libraries and future library
I agree.
direction.
Correct.
I agree.
So, we need both of those. And, you know, and I think this firm, because of who they are, certainly is qualified on that second part. I think we're a little bit uncomfortable with their process doesn't align 100%, more like 90% with how we would do it. Versus looking for some other firm whose process aligns with us but doesn't have the library experience. I think that would be a very big mistake to go in that direction. So that's why I would ask the question is, how much is their process set in stone versus how much can we have a discussion with them and saying, this is what we're looking for, can you tweak your process a little bit to give us how we would like it to be done,
Yeah.
but tying into all of your expertise.
Can someone write down for me what it is that you would like to see, the process that you would like to see, and then I can present this to David?
Well, if no one minds, I'd be happy to do that, but I'm not going to write down the process I want to see. Because I want them to bring all of their creativity and expertise to the creation of the process. But if they're worth their money, they're going to come up with a process that meets our goal. And if our goal is a strategic plan for the board, utilizing as much community input as possible, then they will come up with a process that will meet that goal. And I don't want to shade it, I don't want to steer it, but do we have are we all in agreement that it's a board plan?
Well, I think we should discuss the
Okay.
value. I think that's a great, I think it's a great point you're bringing up. I think we keep coming up to roadblocks in our long-range planning because we don't know what the community wants. So we really do need a lot of community input.
Yes.
Just from their process, if we went with their process here and it came up with a plan, would that be a problem? Or is it that we have our own vision already and we want to make sure our vision gets into it? I guess part of me, I want to do devil's advocate. What's wrong with their plan? What would be wrong with doing it their way?
This was my reaction to what I read. Planning committee is going to develop basically the plan and then give it to the board, and then we accept it or not. But we aren't, as a board, aren't using all the input and all the, that they've collected from the community and from the stakeholder groups, and then the consultant is working with us to create goals that we feel comfortable. with, and so we actually are the experts about the library. We know the budget, and we know what we've done, and we know where we're going. And so, but yet, this proposal to me doesn't allow us to have that kind of input on the plan. This other group is going to be deciding, and then we are just gonna receive it, give some thoughts on it, and then vote for it.
Yeah.
But,
And I think one of the risks you run into in that is the end board have full buy-in then to that plan? Because if you don't have, I mean, even if you vote for it, but you don't have real buy-in, you're not gonna follow through on it. And that's why I think the process needs to be more board-centric. And again, that's why we're appointed to be on this board, is to do these things. It's not to question $100 expenses. It's actually to be focusing on that big picture. And I just, my concern would be, and again, just that at the end, the board has presented something, it's like, here, vote to approve this, and a couple of you were involved, and now you need to implement it. And if we're not fully engaged, I think that might fall flat. Now, that doesn't mean it will. I mean, it could be.
And the other point is our board membership changes,
It
our
does.
key employees change.
Yep.
I mean, so whatever plan, you know, in a way, is there more strength in saying this is more of a community plan than that? Because whatever the board looks like 5 years from now, this will still be the document they're supposed to work with.
Supposed to is
Which, you know,
yes,
so, yeah.
yep.
I also was hoping that the strategic plan would be written so that it's easier to evaluate Deborah. So that, the creative part of that is how things are worded, how it's organized, so that we can use the strategic plan as benchmarks for ourselves as board members, and then what our expectations are for Deborah to help us implement the plan. That was one of the trickier things about evaluating her last year, is that the plan really wasn't written with the idea of evaluating a director, but yet we were trying to use that tool. I mean, we knew that she wasn't responsible, it wasn't a director's strategic plan, it's a board strategic plan, but she is helping us implement it. But it wasn't really worded, it wasn't organized to help us use it as a tool, so we just kind of made do. And we put up with the verbiage and the tense and
But I think it would be whatever document comes out of a strategic plan, then it's up to the board to say, so this is for this year what we expect the director to do, and that would not be in the
Oh, you don't think it
strategic
would be in
plan.
the strategic
Because
plan?
that would be
Okay.
getting into specific
yeah.
duties, and, you know, I think that's getting too, yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm not
maybe I'm
sure
too lofty,
that
but
I don't think this strategic plan would, yes, overall it would tie into our director's evaluation, but I think, no, it's too, it's not gonna be that geared to this is what the director's doing.
But,
I was hoping maybe they could maybe
Well,
think a little bit about it.
and I'll respond to that. If the plan doesn't break it down into deliverables and timelines, it really runs the risk of being a pretty piece of paper sitting on a document that makes we all feel good about, but we don't use day to day because there are no deliverables, there's no things that basically say, this is what you're supposed to be doing to accomplish this. And that would be my fear is, and I don't think that is what the deliverables would be. I think it would be more specific.
Well, it does say a written strategic plan, implementation plan, and measurement plan.
Right,
So
right.
the implementation, but it's hard to know, is that over
Yes.
10 years? So
Right,
where it's
right.
not as helpful for 1 year, so.
But if I can chime in here, like this plan, this 2012 plan that has been modified over the last 7 years, if you look back to the original, you still have the same action plan. And the dates changed over time, like as time
That's
went.
not from the 2012 plan, that was mine, 2014.
Yeah, this is the modified
Oh,
from the
right.
But it was-
2012.
Oh,
Yeah,
but it was
originally.
based off of.
But what I'm saying is like the current one that I've been
Mhm.
working off of is the same thing that's been going on. So going back to what Barry's saying about, you know, time, like this one that Barbara brought in, that's a 3-year plan. And
Yes.
after 3 years, they're gonna reevaluate it again. As what's gone on here is, the dates just kept getting moved out because they weren't getting done. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, and that's where, going back to what you're saying, is a measure for me, you know I need to do this, this, and this is the way I've always operated. That if this is on my list for this year,
That's what you're doing.
I'm gonna make sure it gets done. I'm not gonna keep pushing it out 5 years from now. And I think that's what we have to think about. We've gotta get that plan, whatever that plan is, and get it in a shorter amount of time, like 2-3 years, rather than just taking a plan that was created years ago and keep extending it.
Well, I think some things did get accomplished, but we're changing directors. And so, to give the board a break, I think a lot of things changed that made it hard to necessarily stay on track. And some of that was by design, because Chuck said, I'm not gonna do that, because the next director is going to have to do. But yeah, that's what I was hoping for, is to have that. Deborah, this is what, you know, we're hoping the board, with your help, can accomplish this year,
Mhm.
next year,
Yep.
the year after.
Yep.
And really, we have to work together as a full board with you to know what those items are so that they're realistic. They align with what you know you have staffing for, you have timing for, and really importantly is our budget. And so this steering committee, this strategic planning committee, they won't have access to that knowledge. So they can certainly have our budget as a public document, but do they have the knowledge that we have, having reviewed it, or created it, reviewed it, and monitoring it every month? No. But to make that plan truly an implementation, to really implement it, it has to be linked to a budget. And it's gotta be linked to a realistic assessment of what you can do, what the staff can do. And I personally don't think a strategic planning committee made up of stakeholders can make those decisions. So I guess even that's now another point. It's not a board plan necessarily, and some of the major decisions are being made by folks who don't have some of that really key pieces of information.
Well, my sense is this is an overview, in that when they get together with all of their conversations with the community, with the staff, with the board members and everything, they'll fine tune it to this particular area.
No, this is their proposal. And if it doesn't say that it's going to do some of that,
Then it won't.
I'm not going to trust that they're going to do it. But if we could take a deep breath, and I could write my little, maybe 1 sentence or 2 sentence, and ask them their thoughts on it, see what their response back.
Yeah, the idea of it being a strategic plan for the board using community input,
Right,
something like that.
something
is
like
what
that.
it's-
Right.
Exactly.
And I think you have to, because I'm not understanding what it is that a board plan. I guess I'm having a hard time, because most strategic plans that I've done was around what the community needs.
And that's what we're talking
And
about
the
too.
wants are.
And we're
And
talking about that as well.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, we can come back and we can say, yeah, okay, we want to do this, but is this what the community wants?
And Deborah, we're not saying anything different. We're saying we absolutely want to know what the community wants. We want to have all those conversations, lots and lots of them. But we want the professional to take all that information and bring it to us so that we can consider it and think about it and understand it from the vantage of the experts on how we can implement that.
Okay, that's
We're
what I
not,
was asking.
we're not trying to work in a vacuum. We're not trying to close the door, develop goals on our own. We want to use all of that information from the community to make some really good decisions on how to take what they want and make it happen. But we're the board that makes it happen, so it's got to be the verbiage, the tense, the alignment with the budget, with skill sets, with talent, all of that has to,
All the input is basically what you want.
yeah,
And
lots
that's
of it.
balanced with the constraints of what you can do.
Mhm,
And we have all the constraints.
mhm.
And ultimately, an action plan or whatever you call that output is combining those. Here's what we want, here's the resources, whether it be dollars, personnel, whatever those resources are, and combining them. But it's that combining that's our responsibility. We need all of that vision, all of that input, because we can't do our job without it. We can't expect them to understand the constraints that we operate under. And I think that's where they have to come together through this board.
And I guess another concern I have is, it's a expensive proposal, and we keep coming up against, well, in particular for this building. Even today, there were some comments made about, the future uses of this building. Should there be another place? Should there be an addition to this? I would love to have that be somewhat answered through this process. If we're spending, because it seems to determine, if we know we are committed to this building as the main library, it's a one set of plans. If we know that this will be a branch library and that's another, and we keep getting hamstrung on what we want to do with this building and not having those questions answered, I would really want to see that we would get some answers from on that issue in here.
And I think from my review of that 2011, 2012 that I keep going back to, I think those, because sitting here listening to this, we can create our own strategic plan based on all of that feedback, because I look at that and I look at what hasn't been done. People, said why they don't visit the library. You don't have any meeting space. You don't have any, sitting space. You don't have this, you don't have this. These are all the things that this is what's going to bring the people in. This is what they're asking for, but we haven't given them that. So my take on it, we can go back to all of those conversations that were had 7 years ago, and we can create a brand new strategic plan with this brand new board that has a bigger vision. You know what I'm saying? Because we've got all of that feedback. We know what the people want. My staff here on a daily basis, I know from being out there in the library world, I know what we need. So no, we don't need to spend the money on this. We can, I've created 2 strategic plans in my past libraries. And it's basically based on, conversations that you have, what are people asking for, and what is it that we can accomplish. We know what our budget's going to be for the next, basically kind of the next 5 years. What can we do, and how can we achieve those goals that, what our patrons are looking for,
Yep, interesting perspective.
Wow, so are you suggesting that we don't go with a company like this and we try to do it in-house?
This is what, just listening to you guys and, wanting this board strategic plan, like I said, I shared that master plan with you guys, and I've got all of those notes, all of the comments that people made, why they don't use the library, what they would like to see. We can go back to that and we can look at it and say, no, we haven't done this or this or this. And we can create that, what do you want, 2 years?
But I'll say,
That's interesting.
you don't have the time to do it.
No.
And that's, do you have the skills to do it? Yes. Do you have the knowledge to do it? Yes. I don't think you have the time to do it. And you can correct me if I'm wrong in stating this. Is there a way that we can allow you to have the time so that you could do that by offloading, changing something else? Or do we need to bring in other resources to allow that to happen? And you know, from my perspective, that's the reason we have this before us is we as a board don't think you have the time to do it, and again, not skills or knowledge, just not the time. And therefore, we hire that out, because that's easier to hire that piece out than it is to hire out your other responsibilities. It is a high price tag. I'm less concerned about that than I am with getting the right deliverables so that we're at least getting what we need for a specific dollar amount, as opposed to not getting what we need and then spending money for that.
I guess at this time, you know, going back to our big vision, my big vision, a lot of staff's big vision, you know, do we at this time, do we want to do this for a strategic plan for the next 2-3 years to, you know, kind of get, you know, this building up to par, getting our services up to par, and then maybe 2 years down the road, launch that capital campaign thing,
Right.
you know, once again, putting that conversation on the tables about, you know, we can't go on another 10 years in this building to provide the services for our community that we want to provide. So we do have to start talking about that vision, that, you know, that dream library, that the meeting rooms, the, you know, study spaces, the tech on the main floor, the teen space, you know. I think we need to begin those conversations soon. So do we, for now, take what we know, take the information from the past, and just create that one-page strategic plan that, you know, very basic, you know, this is what we're going to achieve in the next 2 years, and then from there, start that new conversation.
So it sounds like as a board endeavor, I mean, there's so many, we're talking about so many different types of strategic plans with so many different goals. I think we need to be clear what we want from a strategic plan and a goal, and we've thrown in a lot of stuff here. I feel like, unless we know what it is that we're, not that we want the conclusion, but yes, are we looking, you know,
I think
feel like
that
we have
goes
to
back.
give them some, if we went with this firm, like saying to them, this is what we want to find out, like, do we know what our questions are that we do need answered? And I'm not sure that we have
Do we know
definitely
the right
decided.
questions to
Like,
ask?
what are the questions we want answered from this? And I don't know that,
And I think that goes back to my question about, you know, talking about, okay, you guys are saying strategic plan for the board. And that's what I'm saying, I need something to take back to him that, okay, this is what my board's looking for. But I think until you guys figure that out, it's.
Holy smokes.
I
Barry, you want to wrap?
I mean,
So,
well, but I'm just one viewpoint on this, and that's what's, but as a board, for us to evaluate the decisions we need to make around budget, capital improvements, the bigger things that we talk about, we need something that is guiding us. And I would call that a board level strategic plan. And we have a document that is getting older and older. Last updated 2 years ago?
last year when I got
It
here.
was,
Okay, we did do it last year.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, we tweaked it.
right,
Minimal,
but
we
it
did.
was something authored at least 1 or 2 years before that,
Mhm.
which itself was.
And that was a stopgap.
Which itself was a shortcut because it was only about 3 years removed from the 2012 version. So we didn't gather as much community input, although there was some, not as much. You know, the farther we get away from that, it's not that the content isn't still accurate, but you start questioning, is there something more that, something has changed and we're not getting some dynamic in the community that's different?
Yeah.
You know, at some point, you need to invest in getting that broader, and you'll learn that 80% of it is the same, but it's that 20% that's different that you're looking for, that's why you do that. You know, now we're 7 years removed, it's in that time frame. But I think we need something as a board that helps us at budget time, that helps us decide, well, how are we going to allocate these dollars? Could we just dust off what we have for another year or even 2 years? Yes. But then we need to do that, because I don't think we can just take what we have there
No.
and say, well, this is now relevant. We need to go through that process. Is that the same as looking at, I'll say, a 10-year vision? And whether that be district library, whether it be new building, whether, I mean, all of those types of things, that's almost a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Because even in the discussion around this, we're talking, we need something that's, 2-3 years out that helps us short-term make decisions. But then there's long-term making decisions. Those aren't the same, although an awful lot of the input into it is the same. So, maybe the answer is, what we're looking for is that 10-year plan. And we have Deborah lead us through as a board over a couple of months of kind of just tweaking what we have, updating it in light of your expertise, goals, and visions, and blending it with the board's, so that we've got kind of an operational plan for the next year or
A
two,
two-year plan.
while we're then working on,
Longer
and it's,
transition.
and I don't even know,
So that's when,
is that a master plan?
that's a master plan, I was just
Okay.
gonna say,
There you
that's
go.
a master plan, 10, 20 years out.
Right,
Yeah, the strategic plan, short term,
because we're kind
master
of
plan,
asking
long
the
term.
strategic plan to be a master plan.
Okay, yeah.
And
I don't think so, I always knew it was.
Well, I
very
guess I
short
was,
term.
I guess I
Okay.
was, and that's where I brought up, like, we don't know what's, how can we make decisions, but you're right, they're really two separate,
They are.
short
And
term.
thank you for
and-
clarifying the
Right.
terminology.
But I think we're all kind of confused on the same thing, because I think around what you were saying, is you wanna honor some of the stuff that we wanna know what people want, but then we're also saying, but we need to know what we're doing today.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, Tamara, can you draft kind of something that Deborah can take to Dave to see if they can incorporate this
Well, yeah, I
regarding some of
definitely,
this?
and I have offered,
So that we can ask the question, what, to answer our questions, and then see what he has to say.
yeah, I wonder if a conference call would be best.
I think
Because,
it would.
yeah, I think
I
so
think
too.
part of the challenge here is, and I'm pointing to you, Tamara, is because you do this for a
I
living,
know, I'm
Which is-
in
sorry.
some
No,
ways,
no, we're
in
so
some
glad.
ways,
No, no, we're
you
so
know
glad.
too much.
Yeah,
If you weren't here,
We
we would
wouldn't
be
have-
like, in
I
our
wouldn't have a
ignorance, we'd be
clue.
going, oh yeah, this sounds good.
Or no, it's just too expensive.
Or it doesn't sound
Right,
good.
yeah, so-
Based on not
Yeah.
necessarily the right questions,
yeah.
you're forcing us to think through this thing because of
In-
that.
Well,
In a different way.
But it's hard for us to really
Yeah.
appreciate it because
Yeah, this is the expert in this, what you're saying to do.
so I'm comfortable tapping into your expertise and working with Deborah and her expertise and maybe having just a conversation where the two of you are expressing your viewpoints because you're coming at it from different angles, and then coming back to the board saying, after a conversation, he got what we were, and again,
Right.
these people, because this is what they do, they're going to understand both your viewpoint because they're professionals.
Right.
They're gonna understand your viewpoint because they're library specific. And I think they'll be able to translate
Yeah.
both of your
Down to
comments in, and if they can't, well, then maybe they're not as good as we would hope they are. And I think they will be able to.
But I do think Deborah and I are saying the exact
No,
same thing.
you are, but you're not,
Because
you're using
actually,
different language and you're not,
we probably
you're
are,
not.
but I
Yeah.
think that we are saying the exact same
Yes,
thing.
I
think
believe
that
that too.
there's the shorter term, 1, 2, 3 year, exactly what do we wanna do, what does Deborah wanna do, how is it?
Staff.
And then there's the bigger vision. So when you're saying like maybe a master plan, and then maybe Deborah could tackle the 1 to 2, 3 year, maybe,
Right.
I actually think we actually are all saying the same thing.
And you were saying the same thing too.
How are
Right.
we going to get there? Are these the right people to do it? I question their methodology, their process, because I don't think it's getting us what we want. So, but I actually think we're
But-
all on the same page.
But their process, as I understand it, sounds like it could lead to a
The
good master
larger
plan.
master plan?
Yes, that's
Because
right.
that is more separated from, the specific constraints of this board and this day-to-day. That really is, what is this community looking for? And then, how can the board make that occur over a longer period of time?
So if we're
But
gonna
again,
spend
that's not what they're
$28,000
saying.
on them though, I think that they can throw in their short-term 1, 2, 3 year,
Well, I think
or
they're,
short-term strategic goals that our
Yes.
board,
yeah.
maybe board developed.
And that's funny, because they're doing, they're doing benchmarking us against 6 other, they're doing community conversations, they're doing a strategic planning committee. Yeah, we don't need that for the 2-year plan,
Exactly.
but we do need that for the.
And when they put this together, they didn't necessarily put it together in light of,
This,
we've done a 2012, we've done a 2015 update, we did annual updates after that.
Yeah, maybe they don't know.
Knowing that, they may say, oh, you're not approaching this like many libraries where you've not thought about this ever. Now, I'm not saying that there's tremendous value in everything that we've accomplished, but it is still a piece. And just kind of understanding how that all fits together. And also then how what they're proposing would fit with that legacy of documents. And including the, capital plan and,
Right.
campaign that was attempted.
Well, so Deborah, if you wouldn't mind, we could call them together and just have a conversation versus an email. And let's see, remind me, is it appropriate for me to report back out what we found out via email, just to keep you updated, or
Sure,
Deborah too?
Deborah has to send
Deborah.
the email, if you're sending a
That's right,
group
okay.
email.
Through
it's gotta
Deborah,
go,
okay.
yeah.
To report back what we find out and, So-
Again, I'm confident in your skills, and I'm confident in your skills,
right.
that if the two of you can come back and say, we've talked with them, all 3 parties are in agreement, let's do it.
And the goal is to both have the 2-year plan and possibly go for that master plan, is that, what are our,
Thank you.
what
Yes.
is it that we're really asking for? We certainly need the 2-year plan, because
Yes,
that's,
yes.
and it sounds like Deborah
Right.
has a lot of skills to
Right.
bring to that. Are we asking them for more than that?
I think we know that we have a need for a master plan that looks out to the future.
Okay.
They may say, oh, well, that's gonna be another $50,000.
They might,
Because,
and they might.
I
Let's
say
find out.
I
They
say
know, they
that
know.
because
Yeah.
I'm looking at an airport master plan that's a $150,000 budget item. These
Wow.
things are not
no, they're not cheap.
inexpensive.
You guys got a good deal through AES.
But there are so many things that are specific to that environment, so it's,
Sure.
it's not that these things are cheap, but they serve a role, and each piece is part of that puzzle, so.
Okay, so when we talk to them, we're gonna be talking about a longer range master plan, at least 10 to 20 years out, and also shorter term, 1, 2, 3-year goals that are written and function for the board as very implementable items that we can achieve.
But are we talking to them about that, or are we saying we can do that
I'm-
in-house?
No, I'm actually gonna see if they can provide that
Okay,
for this
sure, you can
30,000, because
have-
I don't know why, if he has the skill set that he has, why he can't just hammer that out in a couple hours. Taking everything that he has learned, talking with us. I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't take a lot of time,
Okay.
in my opinion. What will take time is for us to get to say, to hear his suggestions, and for us to benchmark it off of our budget, what we know about our talent, whichever it can achieve. That, I think we actually have a hard part. He can suggest stuff. I don't think that's hard, so I guess that's what I'm gonna kinda. So we're talking master plan, shorter, possible, a lot of community input,
In all aspects.
all aspects of
All of
it, multiple times, multiple ways, and a larger 10, 20-year master plan, and then to also provide shorter-term strategic goals, strategies, whatever. I'd like them to be implementable tasks that we can use to check off, we accomplished this, that we can hold Deborah accountable, we can hold ourselves accountable, and written with that in mind, with that verbiage. So, we'll see what they say. Let's see what they say.
By next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no reason
Yes.
not to.
Yes.
All right.
Sure. Holy moly.
Yeah,
Okay.
wow, we're getting there, we're getting there soon, folks.
No, please.
Motion to close libraries for August 14th for a staff and service training day.
So the 14th and the 23rd?
No,
No, I think
just the 14th.
14th.
Today's April 23rd.
Oh.
What day of the week is that?
Right.
It's a Wednesday?
Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think I went with that date because Arcadia's closed that day, Wellston's closed that day, so it would have
The
least
least impact.
impact.
So I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to, that we close the library branches and main library on August 14th for an in-service training day.
Thank you.
Is there support?
Support.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Selma Johnson.
So, Deborah, this is the same chart we got last time.
Yes.
Right,
Yep,
and I remember we were really excited at the last meeting about these items. I remember there was some question about the outdoor signage, we were thinking maybe it was permanent signage, but really it's signage for programming.
Yep, they're outdoor signs that you change out when you have a program, you put it out on the side of the
Are
road.
they sandwich board
Yep,
type things?
yep, yep,
Okay,
yep.
then that answers my question
Yep.
there.
And then the makerspace tables, which I love, you were thinking about putting those in the kids?
Yep, in the kids' room, we've cleared out one section of shelving, and then we have been looking at makerspaces. They're kind of, the ones we're looking at are kind of like round, and then they have like cabinets underneath them. That's where you keep like your makerspace stuff, but it can be like a dual role, you know, because our space is limited in the children's room. So take out the tables that are in there, put those makerspace tables in there. Now you have the tables, and you also have the makerspace.
So I love the tables, I don't know why I feel a little uncomfortable about the mixing of kids with adults using the makerspace.
Well, that's just for the kids.
No, this is just kids makers.
That's kids at this
This
point.
is just
Oh,
kids.
I thought it was
Just
adults.
She was
No, no.
expanding on all
Okay,
the different
that helps
makerspace
me.
stuff going on.
Okay,
So
okay.
I
this
was
is-
just giving you a very
Can we
broad.
We've been talking about
Actually,
makerspace forever, so
everything-
yeah.
I mean,
I
minutes need to reflect that. We need to be very clear for the public. And we say
agree.
makerspace because that generally, in the broader context, is generally more adult-oriented than it is child-oriented. So I was confused when
So
you
you
said
wanna
that.
say
So
For kids.
children's
Children's
space
space.
table.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's.
And then we
For
can,
children's.
as we figure out our
That-
space, then we can
Right.
expand. She
And-
was just sharing all the
And
different.
specifically, I just want to further qualify, given kind of the focus of our children's area, which is younger than young adult, this really is child makerspace. It's not meant for teens. We would not expect teens to be wanting to use this.
No.
I just wanna make sure that it's
No, our stuff that's, we
targeted
have is
really
going to-
at the age that we're,
Yep.
that space is, because then it makes sense, otherwise I was thinking
Yeah,
some of the same
I'm
things.
concerned about that. I
Okay.
thought that last time we met too, but I
Okay.
didn't say anything.
Okay,
And then we talked about the teen area, and we all had decided at the last meeting that that was fantastic stuff to improve, you know, ideas to improve upon the teen area. The video games is, you know, we're hearing about kids needing, you know, these video games, are really enjoying it, it's getting them into the library.
We have video games that we check out to
Oh,
patrons.
these are for checking out.
And we do have a line item, which is small, and Nick was sharing with me the checkout of these games. So I know a couple years back, they used some Selma to, you know, expand those games to be checked out.
So I would think, may I recommend, having a teenage son, that we ask teenagers what they're playing
Oh, we could.
in the selection of those games, because I can't even imagine as an adult that I could figure out the right games to pick, 'cause I want it to be as relevant to them as possible. There's also content issues, so I don't know how you evaluate.
I know Nick, I'm not sure how he does it, but Nick does have two kids that they're like 10, 11, and they play a lot of video games, so I
Okay.
think he gets that.
He's
So,
so right on that, because he actually shuts his kids' phones off when they don't do what they're supposed to be doing. He just shuts their phone off.
Yeah, I don't.
He has
know.
that.
I think it's like ordering books, like, we're not gonna ask what, I think it's, we have to trust that our staff is doing their due diligence,
Yeah.
knows what's popular, what's gonna be used, that let's, I'm gonna assume that with books and magazines, I
Yeah.
don't think we should be questioning what they're
No, I
ordering.
simply asked
and
if
let's
they
just-
wouldn't mind asking a teenager.
Oh,
I
okay.
say this because
Well-
over Easter, I had my two sons having an in-depth, maybe hour-long conversation about the newest gaming. And it was like, I don't even know, why can't they talk about real issues?
Right.
and I'll chime in on that, is the nature of this, just from a practicality standpoint, it's gonna be console games.
Yep.
Yep.
Most gaming at the teen level does not do console gaming, they do PC-based gaming.
Oh, yes.
And you don't buy games, it's all online, you're
Well, see, I
downloading
know
it.
that.
Yeah,
It's,
that's why we're-
this is really a younger than teen focus
Oh,
line
okay.
item because it's console based.
Okay.
It's just the nature of, there's a big world of difference between console gaming and then
Right.
PC based gaming.
Yes,
And-
apparently we're gonna be building a computer this summer, so that, you know, we can handle all
And
that. But so
I
guess-
have a feeling my children will be involved
There
in
you go.
helping your children, since they do that for many.
Yes, but I do, so that kind of insider information, a teenager knows, so. But I think this looks really great, and I would like to make a motion
The motion that's printed
to
there, right?
move
Yeah,
that the Manistee County Library Board approve $26,400, up to $26,400 to be spent on the associated list of items as presented on the April 23rd, 2019.
Well, we're just doing this minute, right? We're just doing, this is the motion here, right? Like we
Yeah, but I
don't-
want to link it to these items.
Well, it says to the attached list of items.
Yeah, I just put a date on it, that's
Oh,
all.
oh, I see, okay, sorry.
That's all.
Okay. Is there support?
Yes.
Okay, motion support to approve the Selma funds as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, would you take a roll?
Yes.
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 Okay. Video.
you guys wanna watch the video, or do you wanna?
Can I ask a
We're on-
question?
I know it's getting
Did we did we watch the video last month or not?
We
We did not because we had technical issues.
Okay, is this the same video as last month?
No,
then?
it's a
No,
different.
this is a different.
I would actually recommend that we actually get to watch all of these. I don't think it's sufficient just having the printout.
Well, I know I
I
gave you
think-
guys the login for it.
Okay, did everyone watch it?
No, but I remember looking at saying, oh, good, when I have a moment, I can look at
And
it.
that's, but yeah, life then goes on and
Well, maybe we should make a commitment to
I
come back.
think if we don't get to watch it here, it just moves forward and we watch it next month and.
We can do that. I was hoping you guys would be responsible adults.
Okay.
It's not gonna happen. No, I appreciate getting the link because I enjoyed the
I mean, that's
first
it, I
one.
mean, like a lot of times I'll be sitting there doing something at my desk and then I'll just, turn it on and.
Yeah, they're not that long.
So what was the one from last month?
Last month was,
Board meetings?
Yes.
Well, just leave this one for now, then we'll figure out how to.
oh, yeah,
Or
this
is
is
it
a
green?
home, that's the, and it's all kind of things, bunch of, yeah. Sure. Oh, yeah, sure.
You're on the login. So is there some way to change the info?
How long did you get back? Nick.
Oh.
Well, we're waiting. Would you like me to pick up coffee for next meeting also?
It's very nice to have it, so,
Very kind of you, you just put your
know,
Well, Deborah told me I could turn in my slip.
Okay,
I do not always guarantee that there will be goodies, but the coffee I can do if you so.
Did we drink enough of the coffee to make it worthwhile? Because I guess it's one question, and of course, we're missing a board member, so, I mean, I'm just wondering if that's.
Maybe half. Well, it's a 96-ounce container, so.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
There we
I
go.
just wanna make sure we're using, if we're buying treats for the board that we're, or, buying coffee that we're.
It would be coffee that the board is.
Yeah. It is nice to have coffee at the meeting, I have to say, I do
Really
appreciate
enjoy it.
that, yeah,
Okay,
so if I'm running late.
But if it's a bad morning or something, don't,
well,
we
you
won't
know,
expect it, but if it happens, we'll be very appreciative. How about that?
That sounds good,
It's kind of
it's not a
easy.
must-do.
Not a
yeah.
must-do.
I can usually manage to, swing that way.
Yeah, and I never know how quick I'm coming from Onekama, what slows you down.
Well, I
So that's
understand
my-
that, and I'm not very far away, so,
Yeah, that's great.
but I do appreciate something like that.
Thank you so
I mean,
much.
if we're gonna have 3-hour
But that's the
board
other
meetings.
thing.
It's the longest meeting ever.
This was a really long, I thought this was gonna be a quick one, I'm supposed to meet people.
Welcome to Short Takes for Trustees. I'm Beth Novolinsky, the Director of Marketing and Communications for United for Libraries. We are the division of the American Library Association for trustees, advocates, friends, and foundations. I'm here today with our Executive Director, Sally Gardner-Reed, and we'll be speaking about advocacy. Sally, advocacy is becoming increasingly important for libraries these days. How important is it for library trustees to be involved in advocacy?
It's critically important. They're the library's leaders. If they aren't visible and vocal about the importance of libraries and working hard to get the community and the leaders in the community to support the library, if they're not showing that they care, why should anyone else care?
What are the best ways for trustees to be advocates for their library?
Well, fundamentally, and first of all, I think all library trustees should know the powers that be in their community on a first name basis. They should know the mayor, they should know all the council people in their community and other people who have a lot of influence. So whether or not they've been elected by the community at large or appointed by these people, they should know them. These people have a lot of influence, and you want that influence to be in favor of the library. So on a regular basis, they should be visiting their mayor and their council person and letting them know what's going on at the library. Now, I know cold calls can be hard for some people, so if a particular trustee isn't comfortable making an appointment and just going over to visit, then he or she could just take a fellow trustee with them. And it's always good to take a piece of information about what's happening at the library with you, but it's not enough to just say, oh, we got this new computer lab at the library and we're really excited about it. You have to tell why it matters. That's really important. So you can say, we've got this wonderful computer lab at the library, and it's so wonderful because we're seeing these kids who don't have computers at home coming in after school, and they're doing their homework, and we're seeing that we can help level the playing field because we know many children go home, have computers at home, their parents are helping them with their homework. Well, these children can come right into the library, our librarians help them, they're printing reports, they're doing research, they're really able to compete academically, and we think that is so important. And in addition, we're seeing people who've been laid off from their work, who are unemployed, coming in and applying for jobs. I don't know if you realize this, but a lot of jobs, in fact, I would say most jobs, are not even accepting paper applications anymore. You have to apply online. And so what do if you're unemployed? The first thing you're probably going to cut is your internet. And so if you want to get back into a tax-paying employed situation, the library is just the place to come and apply for those jobs. The library staff will help you set up your own account. They can help you find resume resources, interview resources, so hopefully get you off of those unemployment taxes and food stamp services and right into that tax-paying employment services again. And we're also seeing entrepreneurs coming into the library, sort of setting up incubator spaces where they're hoping to launch a new business, which we find very exciting. So we may see some new small businesses here in town that got their start right at the library. We're really excited about that. So we're happy to see, any support you throw our way, because we know a small investment in the library translates into big economic development and big economic drivers here in our own town.
Trustees should also be visible at budget times, right?
Absolutely. If the library's budget is part of a county or city line item, they should be there at budget time. But I have to say, not when the budget's being presented to the public. By then, it's too late. I see a lot of library supporters coming in red t-shirts with balloons at the town hearing on the budget. And sometimes they're able to get an incremental increase when they have enough people show up, but it's really too late. That budget's really put in place. So the trustees need to know the budget scheduling. When are the first budget talks taking place? When that happens is when the trustees need to be in there to present their budget informally, because typically there'll be a scheduled time for each department to present its budget. But they need to be there early on to explain how critically important it is for the library to be well funded.
You mentioned appointments for budget presentations. Can you tell us a little bit about what kinds of presentations would show the economic power of the library? Well, I have to say, a lot of our funders really don't understand that libraries have been become really critical in the digital age. Many of them think that libraries have become obsolete. I don't know how many times I've heard, and probably all of us have heard, that why do we need libraries when we have the internet, thinking that everybody's got a Kindle and they can all download books and we can find all the information we want on Google. Well, the fact is libraries have been doing what they've been doing for the last century and a half, which is collecting the world of information and making it freely available to all people so everybody has access to all the information that there is out there. The world of information isn't free. In fact, for much of the information out there, it's very, very costly, but libraries are bearing that cost as they always have and redistributing and making it freely available. So we have to show the return on the investment and how valuable that return is on a very, very small investment. For example, most public libraries in the country receive less than 3% of any city's operating budget. So when a city decides they want to cut 10% of a library's budget, 10% of that 3 or less line item, that means library doors are going to close. So what are they gaining by cutting 10% of 3%? What are they gaining from that? Well, I can tell you what's happening at the library end of things. They are closing doors on job seekers, so they're going to continue to pay for unemployment and food stamps. They're closing doors on little kids who come to story times, who are going to, in all likelihood, be left behind in kindergarten, because studies show categorically that children who enter kindergarten without a book-rich environment enter behind kids who've had one, and most never catch up. What's the cost of that failure? That's the very definition of penny wise and pound foolish, I think. So we've got to show them that their investment in libraries, less than 3%, translates into huge economic dividends and huge social dividends in the end. And I think that's the case we have to make. You know, when I think about the fact that many cities decide that police and fire and some of those services are so costly and so important, I think that's the very definition of paying for our failure by not paying for prevention.
You are so right. It is a high price for failure, and libraries are so inexpensive for what they offer. Is it okay for trustees to rattle their sabers and shout from rooftops, or will that affect their credibility in some way?
I think their credibility is damaged immeasurably when we see libraries sort of wither on the vine. And it's not just the trustees, it's the community as a whole who lets this wonderful system that we've been developing over 100 years kind of go downhill because we're unwilling to fight for it. And as we just discussed, they're so inexpensive compared to the cost of not having this infrastructure available to our communities. So no, I think in fact just the opposite. They build their credibility when they fight for something as important as the public library.
And they certainly don't have to do it on their own because they have the Friends of the Library available to support them as well.
That's right, absolutely. Friends of Libraries have been working hand in hand with trustees for years to make sure that libraries are well supported and to rattle those sabers together. And it's very exciting to see that happening, because the more people that we can engage in a campaign at the local level, the more likely there is for success. So I'm glad you brought that up, because Friends can be an incredibly important piece of that advocacy pie.
Are there any strategies that trustees and Friends can use for convincing funders and others that the library should be well funded?
Maybe the ways change, but some things in fact don't change. It's a grassroots campaign. I think many voices need to be engaged to convince our funders that libraries matter to their constituents. So the old ways sometimes still work, like postcards, petition campaigns, phone calls, letters to the editor. And now, of course, we have all the digital ways, social media, to go viral and make sure that those who fund us know that the people who vote them in or out of office really care about their libraries.
Thank you, Sally. That was a really fun discussion about advocacy and about all the passion that library trustees and friends and we can all show for supporting our libraries. And for our viewers, we'd like to let you know that we've compiled a great list of resources that can help you not only talk about the importance of libraries, but show the value of libraries in your community. This list will be provided to you by your library director. We encourage you to explore those resources, and if you have any questions, to speak to your library director about those.
Okay, that pretty much takes us to the end of our agenda. Wrapping up with trustee comments. So, Tamara.
I have no comments, thank you.
Ross.
2 comments from a patron. One, he wondered if we would consider having staff name tags. He said, you know, I get things from the library and they always, the staff is so good about knowing my name, of course they look. He said, and he said, I really could use a name tag so that I could call them.
Actually, we just, we got some made. We're ready to almost roll them out, so.
Good. And his other comment was, he's a dad with children. He says, and I wasn't clear on this, that he's not always allowed, if he doesn't have the person who's actually ordered the book with him, he can't be given the book. And he says, is there some way that family members, or maybe it's that one kid's picking up a book that another, you know, but he sort of made it sound like it can be a little difficult to get a book that a family member has ordered and you're going in and you're doing other things and you're saying, oh, can I pick up the book for so-and-so? So, but I said I'd pass it on.
If it's-
And I don't need an answer on it, you know,
Okay.
actually, so, but yeah, so
Okay.
that's my comments, so.
Barb.
I've already made all my comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've got 2 things I wanted to mention, and one we touched on earlier, and that's the state changes around TIF and libraries. We need to understand that, and so I don't know if that's a you task for you to research and bring back to the board, or if we should delegate that to a committee, but if there's things that we need to be proactively doing, we should, as a board, understand that and have those discussions.
If we're talking about like the DDA
So
and
basically
and other,
Is that what you're
In
talking
this county, it's basically the 2 DDAs, so the Filer DDA and the downtown DDA. And, you know, how do we want to proceed? And then the other, and it was kind of touched on this meeting, and there were information in our packet from the Friends. And I have said this before in this forum, I don't feel that we as the board, trustees, and the Friends are in alignment with goals, vision, etc. And at some point we need to, I think, address that. Because, you know, we should be working together like that video is saying, and I don't feel that we are. I don't think we know enough about what they're doing. I don't think they know enough about what we're doing. We have Roz as kind of an intermediate, or
and Barb.
the 2 of you as intermediaries, but I still don't feel that we're in alignment. And I just think that we've got to make that better going forward. So, okay. Anything else? If not, a motion to adjourn would be.
Adjourn?
Second.
Motion and support to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Any
you.
opposed? Meeting adjourned.